To a mutually binding agreement with the nation. The Parsha of Yitro records the revolutionary moment. The Parsha of Yitro records the revolutionary moment when God, creator of heaven and earth, entered into a mutually binding agreement with the nation, the children of Israel, the agreement we call a Brit, a covenant. Now, this wasn't the first covenant in the Torah. God had already made one with Noah, and through him, all humanity, and a second one with Abraham, whose sign was circumcision. But those covenants were not fully reciprocal. God didn't ask for Noah's agreement. He didn't wait for Abraham's assent. But Sinai was a different matter. For the first time, he wanted the covenant to be fully mutual, to be freely accepted. So we find that both before and after the revelation at Sinai, God commands Moses to make sure the people do actually agree. The point is fundamental. God wants to rule by right, not by might. The God who brought an enslaved people to liberty seeks the free worship of free human beings. Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba b'tirunia im briodav. God doesn't act towards his creatures like a tyrant.
I mean, how are you going to explain the whole tradition of when they didn't want to, that God held the mountain over the Israelites' head and basically said, if you don't accept it, I'll drop the mountain on you? Like, that seems pretty tyrannical. Given Midrash is, there's multiple Midrashes that conflict because they're not literal, but it is interesting nonetheless that someone would come up with a tradition around that, despite the fact that there's this idea.
Well, I was going to say the whole general theme of, you disobeyed me, therefore you need to be punished is kind of tyrannical as well. Okay.
I mean, contextually, at the end of the day, isn't that the idea of a law?
Yeah, there are some people who consider laws tyrannical too. So,
Are all laws tyrannical, or are tyrannical laws tyrannical?
well, for some people, any law is tyrannical.
And what are they called? Libertarians? I'm joking.
I can fill in a lot of blanks there, but I'm just going to leave it. Let the people at home fill it in for themselves. Tag.
Oh, well, and that's how you get 70 different answers, 70 faces of the Torah.
I'm surprised it's only 70.
Okay, 144. Better?
Yeah, 144,000. That's a number that works.
Sure.
So at Sinai was born the principle that was millennia later described by Thomas Jefferson in the American Declaration of Independence, that governors and government.
Oh, I thought he was going to go with the whole the tree of liberty must be watered with the blood of tyrants thing, but no, we're going in a different direction.
I was going
derive
with
their
you.
just powers from the consent of the governed. God wanted the consent of the governed. That's why the Sinai covenant was conditional on the people's
Manufactured
agreement.
consent.
Now, admittedly, the Talmud actually questions how free the Israelites really were. It uses an astonishing image. It said God suspended the mountain above their heads and said, if you agree, well and good. If not, this will be your burial. Well, that's another subject for another time. Suffice it to say that there's no indication
Convenient.
of this in the text itself. What's interesting is the exact wording in which the Israelites give their consent. To repeat, they do
Not
so
seven
3
Nishma.
times.
We will do
The
and we will
first
listen.
before the revelation, then twice afterwards in the Parshah of Mishpatim. Listen to the 3 verses. Before the revelation, Vayanu kol ha'am yachdav, vayemru kol asher diber Hashem na'aseh. All the people answered as one and said, all that God has spoken, we will do. And then this is what they say afterward. Vayavo Moshe, vayasaper la'am et kol divrei Hashem v'et kol hamishpatim. God came and told the people all God's words and all his laws. And then vayan kol ha'am kol echad v'yomru kol advarim asher diber Hashem na'aseh. And the people all responded with one voice, we will do every word that God has spoken. And now comes the third assent. Vayikach sefer habrit vayikra be'eznei ha'am. Moses took the book of the covenant and read it in the ears of the people. Vayomru, and they said, Kol asher diber Hashem na'aseh v'nishma. All the people replied, we will do, and nishma, all that God has declared. Let's leave that word untranslated for a moment. Note the subtle difference. In the first 2 cases, people say, all that God says, we will do. In the third, they use the double verb, na'aseh v'nishma, we will do and we will hear, or obey, or hearken, or understand. The word shema means, among other things, to understand, as we do. In the third, they use the double verb, na'aseh v'nishma, we will do and we will hear, or obey, or hearken, or understand. The word shema means, among other things, to understand, as we find in the story of the Tower of Babel, when God says, come, let us descend and confuse their speech, so that lo yishma'u ish sefat ra'ehu, which means so that no one will understand other people's speech. So the first 2 have the word na'aseh, let's do, we will do, but the third says na'aseh v'nishma. But note that there's another difference. In the first 2 cases, there's a clear emphasis on the unity of the people. Both phrases are very striking. The verse 1 says, all the people answered as one. The second says the people all responded b'kol echad, with a single voice. Now, in a book that emphasizes how fractious and vociferous the people were, such declarations of unanimity are significant and rare. But the third verse, which mentions both doing and understanding, contains no such statement. It simply says, they said. There's no emphasis on unanimity or consensus. Now, what we have here is a biblical comment on one of the most striking features of all in Judaism, the difference between deed and creed, between asiyah and shmiyah, between doing and understanding. Christians have theology, Jews have law. And these are two very different approaches to the religious life. Judaism is about a community of action. It's about the way people interact in their dealings with one another. It's about bringing God into the shared spaces of our collective life. Just as we know God through what he does, so God asks us to bring him into what we do. As Goethe said, in the beginning was the deed. That's why Judaism is a religion of law, because law is the architecture of behavior. When it comes to belief, creed, doctrine, all the things that depend on shmiyah, on understanding, rather than asiyah, on action, on this, Judaism doesn't call for unanimity. Not because Judaism lacks beliefs. To the contrary, Judaism is what it is precisely because we believe what we believe, most importantly in monotheism, that there is at least and at most one God. The Torah tells us in Bereshit about creation, in Shemot about redemption, and in this week's Parsha about Revelation. All those are fundamentals of Jewish belief. Judaism is a set of beliefs, but it's not a community based on unanimity about the way we understand and interpret those beliefs. It recognizes that intellectually and temperamentally we're different. Judaism has had its rationalists and its mystics, its philosophers and its poets, its naturalists and its supernaturalists. Judaism has had Rabbi Ishmael and Rabbi Akiva, Judah Halevi and Maimonides, the Vilna Gaon and the Baal Shem Tov. We seek unanimity in halacha, not in agadah. Naaseh, we act in the same way. But nishma, we understand each in our own way. That's the difference between the way we serve God collectively and the way we understand God individually. And what's fascinating is that this well-known feature of Judaism is already signaled in the Torah itself. In the difference about the way it speaks about Naaseh, when Jews said, we will do, and that they said with complete unanimity, as one, with a single voice. But when it came to Nishma, we will understand. On this, they didn't speak with one voice. There was no collective consensus because each of us interprets and understands the principles of Jewish faith in our own way. Our acts, naaseh, are public. Our thoughts, our nishma, are private. That is how we come to serve God together, yet relate to him individually in the uniqueness of our being and of our understanding. Shabbat Shalom.
Interesting. You have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, what brings to mind is the difference between, spirit of the law and letter of the law. And the letter of the law is what's written in, is what's written down there. It's the legalese. And, that's one of the issues is it's people who you need both of them. You need to have you need to have the letter of the law, and the individual needs to have the spirit of the law in their heart, because if you go strictly by the letter of the law, you end up doing harm because you're missing the spirit of why the law exists. And the other way, if you're just going entirely by spirit, there's nothing for people to go by. There's nothing objective. And that's what was coming to mind in there, and it wasn't where he was going. It was just what I was taking out of it. Tag.
Yeah, I think it's kind of important to kind of pull on what you were saying, that it is kind of this combination because you don't get like basically it through looking at the letter of the law, like what's literally written, but then interpreting that's where it's saying to go, basically to apply the spirit of the law to the letter of the law, as opposed to something as simple as just reading it literally, or on the other hand having oral interpretation and going off of that rather than going off of what's actually written to the point that actually conflicts with it. So I think what rabbinic Judaism tries to do is get that balance that you're talking about.
No, I agree. And
Yeah, I
again,
know.
I was just pointing out the way that if you can go into error if you don't achieve that balance, which rabbinic Judaism also has demonstrated at times. You've had some rabbis that have gone more too legalistic, and some have gone, too non-legalistic. Tag.
Well, but I think that's also kind of the beauty that it was individual rabbis, not rabbinic Judaism, because it didn't go in any one way. It's basically in the middle of all, like, you could look at it as the average of all its polarities.
Oh no, I agree 100%. That sort of moves it into a value neutral sort of position. You can't say that in and of itself rabbinic Judaism is good or bad. It's based off of how the individual rabbi and congregation chooses to embody it.
Let's see what I can find here. Yeah, that's interesting. Jethro really isn't talked about that much. We'll start him.
Oh, I'm sure there were lots of stories of traditions about Jethro in the past that haven't made it to the modern day.
Oh yeah, I'm just talking about YouTube is all.
Oh, okay. Probably almost more with Jethro from the Beverly Hillbillies.
Wait, what is this? Let's see. Let's look at some contemporary.
At the end of the Second World War, a group of non-Jewish British intellectuals decided to convert and become Jewish.
Wait, what?
Basically,
oh, he's connecting this to... He's going to connect this to Jethro, who wasn't Jewish and converted.
At the end of the Second World War, a group...
And I guess he's connecting Egypt to, like the tribulations of Egypt to, like, the Holocaust or something.
A group of non-Jewish British intellectuals decided to convert and become Jewish. Basically, their rationale was, if you're not part of the solution, you'll become part of the problem. They saw how Germany, the most civilized country in Europe, had descended into unparalleled barbarity in just a few short years, and so they decided to become part of the Jewish nation. Rashi comment.
I feel like that's just fallacious reasoning. Like, to think that... I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think anybody's immune to bad thinking. And so to be like, oh, it's almost like, in some ways, it almost seems like they wanted to be, like, kind of going into this... Like, it's one thing if they just wanted to be Jewish because that's how they felt, but, like, it seems like it was almost like they wanted to be like, oh, look at us, we're not oppressors. We're like almost going as far to say we're not oppressors, we're oppressed. I don't know, I'm getting that. Almost like, look at us, we can't do any wrong because we're... And again, like, these aren't people who, grew up Jewish. And again, I feel like it's completely different if they felt like a connection to the religion, but if it's just that they're like, oh, well, we're either going to be Nazis or Jews, like, that's... I don't know, it really rubs me the wrong way.
No, I'm definitely with you. They seem like the woke of their day, and that whole rationale of becoming what you want. The part that jumps out to me that he was saying was, weren't at least one of those two world wars fought over which was the most civilized country in Europe?
I can't really hear you.
Oh, can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I was basically saying, wasn't at least one of the world wars fought over which was the most civilized country in Europe? Because I was thinking that both France and England would take issue with the idea of Germany being the most civilized country in Europe.
I don't know. I think it was just sparked by an assassination, realistically. And then people dug their heels in.
You had treaties where every cousin was, in a treaty with everybody else, and everything got tripwired, and yeah, it was a whole mess. But
yeah,
it's on the opening words of Parsha Yitro, and Yitro heard. Says Rashi, what did he hear that made him come? The splitting of the sea and the war of Amalek. Why, of all the great miracles that the Jewish people experienced in Egypt, should these two events have inspired Yitro to convert? The nation of Amalek has an implacable hatred of the Jews that is without reason. It's instinctive and visceral. Anti-Semitism is as normal to Amalek as breathing or eating. But not everyone is a born anti-Semite. The majority of people will always be in the middle, neither Jew nor Jew hater, waiting to be swayed one way or the other. Yitro saw that if a person doesn't act on inspiration, not only does that inspiration wane and fade, but it rots and becomes its opposite, revulsion. He understood that if he did not act on the inspiration of seeing the unbelievable open miracle of the splitting of the sea, that he too would eventually become like Amalek, cold-hearted, disbelieving, an atheist, a Jew hater.
I don't think
Anyone with an
atheism
eye
needs
or
to
an
be like
ear
that.
for current events will be struck by the supreme irony of the accusation by South Africa that Israel is committing acts of genocide. The concept of genocide was coined by a Jewish lawyer, Raphael Lemkin, to describe the Nazi atrocities. Alone, among the 17 judges who deliberated on interim measures in the case concerning the application of the Genocide Convention in the Gaza Strip, South Africa versus Israel, of all of those, Julia Sebutinde of Uganda voted against all proposed provisional measures. In her lone dissenting view, she argued the absence of a credible indication of genocidal intent by Israel. Genocide is the intention to obliterate a nation, not the ghastly concomitant casualties of an urban war where civilians are used as human shields by cynical state terrorists. The slogan, "From the river to the sea," is indeed a cry for genocide. And what about the other 17 judges? The Jewish people may not have many friends, but it warms the heart when, like Yitro, someone stands up and wants to be counted with us.
I mean, we talked about this, however many times ago, but it really comes down to a matter of definition. And again, that doesn't mean that what's happening is, good, and it's, the whole thing to unpack, but not for today.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm not sure about his access of, you're either a Jew hater or a Jew. It's like, yeah,
I
I go
think he,
more.
I think he means more like you're either for or against, or you don't care.
That's what I
But
was gonna say. It's more like you're either a Jew hater or a Jew lover. It's like,
yeah, but to some people, Jew lovers, they basically can't see any difference between them and Jews. Particularly Nazis. Nazis kind of thought that way.
Oh, I agree. It's just one of the big mysteries that I've always wondered is why, that was the accusation against Rudolf Steiner. And it's like it was almost a choice between Steiner's path for Germany after World War One, or Dietrich Eckart and more of the Vril Society and Nazi Party. And for
I
some
mean,
reason, they decided to go against Steiner, and Steiner made so much more sense.
honestly, I think it wasn't even a matter of whether he liked Jews or not. It was just if you want to slander someone in Nazi Germany, calling them a Jew lover is basically worse than someone or it's basically equivalent to someone in our society being called a P word.
Yeah, no, it's basically reached the point where if you weren't an active Jew hater, you were considered a Jew lover. It was you had to show your anti-Sem, fly it proudly, like your Nazi flag.
Yeah, have your anti-Star of David on your sleeve. Wouldn't that be I mean, it's fucked up humor, but imagine like you have the Jews who are forced to wear the Star of David, and then you have the Nazis and the non-Jews who are forced to wear like those like no signs where it's like a red with a dash through it, and then I mean it's the Nazis wouldn't have done that because they only cared about singling out Jews, but I don't know, it's just it kind of shows you how ridiculous the whole concept is if you think about it.
Yeah, no,
what
I was
do.
going slightly different, where all of a sudden, the Star of David became like an advertising one. If you want to go to a good doctor, make sure he's wearing that Star of David tag.
Meh, honestly, as long as you can go to a doctor and they're not flying a Hamas flag, I'm pretty much good with that.
I can see that.
Let's see. All right, well, we'll start in a moment. Yeah, I mean, literally, you search for Yitro, Jethro, most of the stuff that shows up is just about the passage, or I mean the chapter. Let's see.
Well, you know there has to be an enormous backstory behind Jethro and the rest of the Midianites. That's where Moses fled. That's kind of, where he learned about Yahweh and that was exposed to him. It's like, that there's more to it than just those few surface facts from the passages.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Hazak Baruch, thank you for joining us on this beautiful Tuesday morning as we are studying together Parashat.
Whoa. Okay, that's freaky, right? That's freaky. I mean, I guess it's technically a one. I mean, if you break it down, let's see, morning, noon, afternoon, night. So I mean, that's basically 4 times 7. That's what, a 1 in 28 chance. Actually, no. Reduce that down to 6, so it'd be. Wait, what am I saying? 4 times 6, that'd be 24. So yeah, it would be a 1 in 24, 1 in 24 chance that would be correct, right? Because he wouldn't have recorded on Shabbat, and the fact is that it is Tuesday morning. Of course, I'm joking. I'm not like actually thinking that he's like talking through time and space to us any more than any of the other videos are. We're just playing it, but I don't know, I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
Oh, this is cool. Edmund I Safra Synagogue. That's cool. The the logo.
Yitro, and I hope everyone again enjoyed their winter session as we are recharged and ready for our long stretch as we head now into a 2-month dive till our next holiday, till Purim, as we have double Adar this year. We have an extra month because the holidays are very early.
Wait,
so we need to delay 1 month so that Pesach falls out in this.
When was this made? 6 days ago. So January 3rd. Okay, let's see. Calendar. Span that. So the 30th. Okay, so yeah, he made this 6 days ago. So I guess he was. Okay, so I'm doing something different than most people. I guess they talk about the upcoming Parsha, whereas I'm talking about the past week's Parsha, which I guess at the end of the day really doesn't make a difference. I mean, I guess the only. I don't know. Maybe one of these days, one of these times, if I ever have enough time, it would be nice to get ahead just so that I can talk about the coming week's Parsha with it. Anyway, semantics thing. Do that another time. But interesting.
Spring. That means we're going to have hopefully better weather in Pesach, but that also means that we now have 2 months until Purim that we get to really study and enjoy the beautiful lessons of the Parashah. And here we go as we take a deep dive again into the Orah Hayim as we are studying together this year, the beautiful words, the Orah Hayim HaKadosh, together. So here we go. Let's begin. The Orah Hayim, again, as we're studying this year, a commentary written 400 or 500 years ago on the Parashat HaShavua. Our Parashah, my friends, is called Parashat Yitro. Yitro, let's read the Psukim. Let's see what the Orah Hayim has for us. Vayishma Yitro, Kohen Midian Hoten Moshe. The Pasuk tells us that Yitro, who is the Kohen Midian, okay? What does that mean, Kohen Midian? He's the priest of Midian. He's Choten Moshe. He's also the father-in-law of Moshe. He heard, Vayishma, he heard, Kol Asher Asa Elohim LeMoshe uYisrael Amo. He heard everything that God did to Moshe. And
dang it. Yeah, here, just start these don't want to lose track of time. All right. So this is Exodus. Exodus 18. And then let's see, where is it? Here? No, not there. Let's see. Here. Here, does this one ain't good? Does this have a hero? Yeah. Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה. Interesting. Natan. Wait, where is it? Bachar banu mikol amim v'natan lanu et Torato. So some people will translate this as that chose that chose us from among all the people, and who gave to us his Torah. But it should be understood in context. He who chose us from all the nations to give, basically connecting one to the other, because, again, what's this idea of chosenness? It's literally not, it's not this idea of better than, it's this idea of, chosen for this role versus that. But it's kind of relevant because it's literally talking about the giving of the Torah, and that's this week's Parsha. Well, this past week's Parsha, rather. I'm thinking backwards. Most people, I guess, think forwards. But it's easier to think backwards. All right. Vayishma Yitro Kohen Midian Choten Moshe Et Kol Asher Asa Elohim LeMoshe ולישראל עמו כי הוציא אדוני את ישראל ממצרים ויקח יתרו חותן משה ציפורה אשת משה אחר שילוחיה ואת שני בניה אשר שמה אחד גרשום כי אמר גר הייתי בארץ נכריה ושם האחד אליעזר כי אלוהי אבי בזרי ויצילני מחרב פרעה ויבוא יתרו חותן משה ובניו וישתו אל משה למדבר אשר חונה שם הר האלוהים ויאמר אל משה אני חותנך יתרו בא אליך ואשתך ושני בניה עמה ויצא משה לקראת חותנו וישתחו וישקלו וישאלו איש לרעהו לשלום ויבואו האוהלה ויספר משה לכותנו את כל אשר עשה אדוני לפרעה ולמצרים על אודות ישראל את קוד התלה אשר מצאתם בדרך ויצילם אדוני ויחד יתרו על כל הטובה אשר עשה אדוני לישראל אשר הצילו מיד מצרים ויאמר יתרו ברוך אדוני אשר הציל את מצרים ומיד פרעה אשר הציל את העם מתחת יד מצרים. And Yitro, the priest of Midian, heard the father-in-law of Moshe heard all that that Elohim had done for Moshe and for Israel, his people, that he led them, or that he brought them in Exodus, that Adonai brought them in Exodus, brought Israel in Exodus out from Egypt. And Jethro took Jethro, the father-in-law of Moses. I don't know why they have to emphasize that he's the father-in-law of Moses, but I mean, because they're saying, the father-in-law of Moses took Zipporah, the wife of Moses. I don't know why it doesn't say Bito, his daughter. It's kind of why he's the father-in-law, but took after he had sent her. After she had been sent home, I don't know why it doesn't say Beitan. And her two sons, that the name of one was Gershom because it was saying Ger-Haiti, I am a stranger, or I was a stranger, be'eretz Nachariah, in a land of foreignness. And the name of the other one was Eliezer, because Elohei Avi be'ezri, is the God of my fathers is in my help, or was my help, and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh. Interesting. So this is a theophoric name named in honor of God saving Moses. That's pretty fascinating, because there's also like other ones. There's a lot of examples of like similar ideas. I mean, not this specific example, but just this general idea of naming in honor or in thanks. And this is probably what the idea of dedicating or offering up your firstborn child is. It's not literally sacrificing them; it's naming them in honor of the God that you would sacrifice to. In addition to sponsoring a sacrifice, of course. But it's not like if you don't sacrifice the animal, you have to sacrifice your child. Maybe at a very, very ancient time before, see, here's the thing. A lot of people like to say, pagans weren't civilized. But the truth is they were. Most pagans, despite the fact that the term itself is derived from rural people. But in antiquity, most of to be fair, a lot of people were pagans. But like paganism was strongest in the cities. So this idea that they were uncivilized, you could argue that cities were uncivilized, sure, but in terms of the idea that people were sacrificing their children, in all likelihood, people have seen examples of that even in modernity, even after people don't believe in all these gods that you have to sacrifice to in order to appease them. This happens in times of extreme stress, like in times of great famine. Like it's really messed up. There's actually I don't know if you've heard of this, but one theory is that the story of Hansel and Gretel, because originally, so narratively, right when the witch is shoved into her oven, the witch who's trying to eat the children, that same moment, their mom dies. It's kind of eerie. But then the other thing is that it was written in a time of history when, so there was, there had been a boom in population due to a great surplus of, I think, of food and like other supplies. But then, as a result of, I think it was the like mini ice age that accompanied the rise of Attila, was it? I might be off with my dates, but one of the hordes from the east, and basically due to the sudden loss of a lot of their crops, they started starving, and there were cases where they only had enough food for however much of the family, and they basically had to make a choice. Which kid isn't going to make it, and so some people would just abandon their children and have them starve in the wilderness, and in much darker cases, people would even I'm not going to say because you can fill in the blanks, but basically the whole idea of I'm not trying to be controversial here, but the whole idea of what's Jesus say, eat of my body, drink of my blood, that whole idea. So basically, notice there's two things happening in that narrative according to that idea. On one hand, they're abandoning the children so that they don't have to feed them. On the other hand, there's this witch that, but witches don't exist, at least not like. I mean, she's really seen more as a hag than a witch, probably. Going back to old like Germanic and old Anglo-Saxon myth, but the idea of also Slavic, it's present in Slavic myth. But that basically the idea of the hag, she appears when they're abandoned, but she also dies right at the moment the mother dies. And when the mother dies, because apparently she's the reason why they it's like the evil mother who kicks them out, and the father's just like obeying her orders. But when she dies, the witch dies or the hag dies, and they're able to return home. But like, it's kind of implying that they killed their mom who was trying to eat them.
Yeah, I was going to say you have echoes of the whole Snow White story in there too.
Which part? I don't remember. I don't remember Snow White's evil stepmom wanting to eat her.
Well, not so much the wanting to eat her, but it's she becomes the hag, and Snow White can only return back to the castle after the hag's dead.
Interesting. Anyway, I'm going to start getting my 420 dub right, but real quick. So the etymology for Jethro is from yoter, which means like great or increase. So basically, it means like great one.
Yeah, I was going to say I do find that there's probably something to the idea that Jethro was an original priest of Yahweh, and there was the cult of Yahweh. Yahweh was being worshipped by the Midianites, and that was where Moses was adapted into it and all. That seems to be very consistent with how the narrative goes, even though it's not specifically written in tag.
Yeah, there's definitely something there.
Everything that God did to his people, Israel. Okay, so that's our Parashah. The name of the Parashah is Yitro, taken right here from the opening pasuk. That Yitro heard everything that Hashem did to Moshe and to the Jewish people. Okay, very nice. What did he hear? Ki hotzi Adonai Yisrael Misraim. And he heard that God took them out of Egypt. Vayikach Yitro chotel Moshe. So he took Tzipora, who is Tzipora, Eshet Moshe, the wife of Moshe. Ahar shiluheha, after she was sent away, he brought Tzipora, ve'et shnei banei, her two sons, Gereshom and Eliezer. He brought them so that they could be reunited with their family, with their father Moshe. He brought them out to the desert. So here we have a beautiful family reunion of Moshe reuniting with his kids, his wife, and his father-in-law. Okay, I'll leave that up to you if it's fortunately or unfortunately. But his father-in-law, yes, is coming to greet him in the desert. Okay, very nice. So simple, very, very simple pasuk, straightforward. Today's class, by the way, is sponsored, dedicated for the refuah shlema, for the success of all of Am Yisrael. B'ezrat Hashem, refuah shlema. All the learning, all the inspiration, all the growth should be for all of the Jewish people. Hazak baruch to our sponsor, Hashem should bless you and your family with all the amazing blessings of health, happiness, success. Nachat, bracha. You should see your family growing in the beautiful way that you are. Amen. Okay, so What's the Orach Hayim going to add over here? Well, he begins with a very interesting question. The halakha is, I don't know if you know this halakha, but there is a halakha that it's found in the Gemara in Masechet Baba Metzia. Okay, please open to Baba Metzia, page 58b. The Gemara says over there, there's a halakha over here. I don't know if you know this one. You're not allowed to remind somebody of their past. Okay, that means you're not allowed to tell someone, remember when we were in high school? I can't believe it. Look at you. You're all religious now. Remember what you used to do on Saturday nights in high school? Remember what you did when we went away in Acapulco? You're not allowed to tell it to someone. You're not allowed to remind someone of their past. Make them feel bad. Now the guy is much better. Person's honest. Imagine a person used to be a crook, and now they're honest. You can't tell them, oh my gosh, look at you. You're so straight. Even your accountant is all the taxes. You came a long way. I remember when you were younger. You did a lot of shady things. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to remind someone of their past. Okay? It's a halakha. So the Orach Hayim there, therefore, asks a question. We have to understand, how are you now considering, why are you telling me that Yitro is Kohen Midian? You're referring him to him as the priest. What does priest mean? Priest means clergy. He's idolatry. He is the priest of Midian, right? In Zol Ma'ala, that's not a virtue. Illa Yarida, that's a shortcoming. That's negative. Why are you describing Yitro in a negative way? It's not a nice thing. Usually if someone's Parshah is named after the guy, he's a good guy, he's doing something very nice over here. He's coming to meet the Jewish people in the desert. You would praise him. But instead of praising him, you end up, imagine a guy gets married. Under the chuppah, what's the rabbi's job? The rabbi's job under the chuppah, the rabbi says, hopefully short speech, right? About the Khatan and Kala. Sometimes the rabbis get carried away. Who knows? They speak for a long time. But, keep it tight, keep it short, keep it sweet. And the goal of the speech,
if only he knew, the irony is pretty funny.
Orach Hayim, goods on the Parashah. It's not your goal. If you're speaking under the chuppah, you did to praise the Khatan and Kala, the families, right? That's what no one wants to hear. Gematria, no one wants to hear Divrei Torah, Chidushim. According to the Rav Akiva Eger, right? The wedding, the ring. You're not here to do that, right? You're here to praise the Khatan and the Kala. As everyone knows. Everyone knows that's what you're doing under the chuppah. Imagine the rabbi gets up and as he's praising the Khatan and the Kala, he says, old guy Joey, it's amazing seeing you here. This beautiful girl. What a good family you married into. And Joey, you really came a long way. Wow. I would never thought. Look at you. Wow, just last year, what you were doing. And now, Joey, wow, Mazal Tov, really. I would have never thought. If I had to bet, I would never put money on the fact that you would be here, settle down with a Jewish girl. Like, what are you doing? Condescending, you're embarrassing the guy on his wedding day. You came a really long way. You really grew. You were in rehab and you were filled with just anger. And now look at you. You really, doesn't sound right. You're not supposed to do that, the guy's wedding day. Over here, you're praising Yitro, but you're telling me bad things about him. That he's Kohen Midian. So that's the Orach Hayim's question. And we know the rule, you're not supposed to mention a person's shortcomings.
What shortcomings? Let's look. Kohen, priest, principal officer, chief ruler, priest king. It can be a pagan priest. It could also be a priest of Yahweh. What's to say that that's not what Yitro was? It's literally, I'm sorry, but it's literally the land where Hashem revealed that name to Moses, to anyone for the first time, narratively. So
I agree with you. It's clear that his interpretation is that Jethro was not a priest of, the priest of Midian wasn't the same as a priest of Yahweh, which that's, in my opinion, that's reading an interpretation in that's not necessarily there.
Yeah, here, I'll give you context. So so priest king would be something like, actually do not know. It would be more of something that's applied, it's applied to different people. So in this idea of so what's interesting is that I don't know why it's applying here to Messiah, because you have this idea of Melech Moshiach, of King Moshiach, but you don't have the idea of priest Messiah. You have the idea of anointed priests, but that would have to be like Kohen HaMashiach, the anointed priest. But I don't know why it's saying priest king. That's misuse of it there. The pagan priest, so that would be I think that would just be contextual. That would be dependent on what they do. Then you have priests of Yahweh, so that'd be like Kohen Adonai. You have Levitical priests, that would be like Kohen Alevihim. You have Sadducite priests, that would be like Tzedokim, or Kohenei Tzedokim, or B'nai Tzadok. Then you have Aaronic priests, which would be Kohenei B'nai Aaron or something. and then the high priest would be HaKohen HaGadol, or the great priest. So, okay, this is actually another interesting. So the word here, it's not high priest, it's literally great priest. Now, what does Yitro mean? Abundance. What does abundance mean? Greatness. Whose abundance? What god was he worshiping? Oh, shoot, I wasn't sharing this. So, yeah, look at this. So, Jethro, his abundance. And then, what was the other thing I was looking at? Oh, yeah, Cohen. Sorry, dang it.
It's all good.
Yeah, I might just end up clipping that back and, like, having this put up against it. But, yeah, so here. So, priest go Cohen. Priest king, it would be like Cohen. I do not know a context that it would actually be referred to as priest king directly in Hebrew, but you have pagan priests, which, like I said, would be dependent on context. Priest of Yahweh, which would be Kohenei Adonai, Levitical priest Kohenei Leviim, Tzedekite priest like Kohenei Tzedokim, Aaronic priest Kohenei Aaron, Kohenei Bnei Aaron, and the high priest Kohen HaGadol. Now, HaKohen HaGadol, Gadol and Yatar and Gadal. Yeah, Gadal means to be great. Yatar means to be abundant. So the question is, whose abundance? Because so if he's a priest, and this is clearly like a priestly title, it's saying his abundance. It must be the abundance of the god that he's worshiping. So first of all, Yitro. So it's his abundance. So we know he's not worshiping a goddess in this context, which again, I personally think that there would be an argument because of the whole idea of a hieros gamos. But throwing that out of the way for now, he's worshiping a male god. Now, let's see. I mean, we'll continue. But I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Because it's literally saying here that his name is almost like he's almost the prototype for the first high priest.
No, I agree 100%. The it's the what always made more sense to me is the idea that Yahweh was worshipped, in Midian. It's the whole Kenite, the whole Kenite hypothesis, and it's the idea that Moses picked up the worship of Yahweh from Jethro and the Midianites. That Yahweh was already worshipped by them, and that Jethro was basically the high priest of Yahweh before Moses. Tag.
All right. And Jethro, the father-in-law of Moses, brought Moses' sons and his wife to Moses to the desert, where he was camping there at the Har Elohim, at the mountain of gods or mountain of the gods. This is almost saying like this idea of Har Elohim. It's almost like a parallel to Mount Olympus. This idea of the divine mountain, the holy mountain. It's not holy mountain; it's the divine mountain. But
well, not just Olympus. That's a recurring Mount Meru.
Obviously, yeah. I'm tired. I'm going to the first easy answer.
No, I get it.
Also, something that most people know. Whereas once you go away from Greece, people start losing reference points. So, Vayomer Moshe ani. And he said to Moses, I chotencha, I am your father-in-law Yitro. Oh wait, and he said to Moses, I am your father-in-law Jethro. I have come to you. I am coming to you, and your wife and 2 daughters are with me. Are coming with. Vayetzem Moshe. And Moses went out to meet his father-in-law and to Yishtachu and to bow down. And he bowed down to him and he kissed him and he asked the man. he asked, I guess it's saying each, he, a man to his friend, he asked each to his friend for their welfare, and vayavo'u ha'ohela, and he came into the tent. Interesting. So basically, he asked his friend about his peace or his welfare. It's interesting. It's like, how are you doing? But it's so much like it's like, how is your peace? Like it. This is interesting. My friend Jesus, not the guy that the Christians are worshiping, but one of the Christians who are worshiping Jesus. But anyway, my friend Jesus, he pointed out how the I forget if he was talking about Uodom or if he was talking about Yaqui, but basically one of the native indigenous peoples of the Americas. He was talking about how one of their greetings is like, it's kind of similar. It's very this like deep emotional like tell me, is anything wrong? I forget, I'm paraphrasing obviously, but it was really beautiful. I'll have to ask him about that sometime. But and so he bowed down. Oh, I read that. And they went into the tent. Vayisaper Moshe, and he told Moshe. Oh no, Moshe told to his father-in-law all that Adonai had done for Pharaoh, or done to Pharaoh and to Egypt, about Odot Israel, all the causes, enclosing walls, circumstances, all the circumstances that were upon Israel, and all the tala'ah, all the hardships. Wait. Oh, for the cause of Israel. Okay, so you're saying all the things that you did to Pharaoh and to Egypt for the sake of Israel, and all the turmoil, all the hardships that had found them. Interesting. So it said befallen them, but it's not nafal. This word here, it's interesting that fall and nafal, that they sound similar. I never realized that might have been one of the reasons why it was so easy to remember it. Anyway, but it's saying here matzatam, that found them, that found so and all the trouble, all the turmoil that found them on the path, and that Adonai rescued them from, or from which Adonai had rescued them. Vayichad, and they joined together. No, and Jethro, Vayichad, Yachad, rejoice. Chada. Oh, I thought it was Yachad. It's Chada. And Jethro rejoiced upon all the goodness, or all the good that Adonai had done for Israel, as he had rescued them from the hand of the Egyptians. Ooh, nice. I just realized I'm getting a lot better, a lot faster at translate. I mean, I've been noticing it for a while, but when I'm not fucking exhausted, pardon my language, it's a lot easier. I mean, I'm still pretty tired, but I'm not exhausted.
No, you're definitely improving.
Yeah, I remember that last time I was like, okay.
Well, that's one of the ways you get better is practice.
And do it when you're literally like zombie brains tired.
Yep.
Like your dad said. Let's see, where was I? Vayomer Yitro Baruch. Okay, and Jethro said, "Blessed blessed be Adonai that rescued you all from the hand of the Egyptians and from the hand of Pharaoh, that who rescued the nation from below the hand of Egypt, or from under the thumb of Egypt." I like that better. Literally hand, but come on. You gotta translate his thumb for the sake of the fun. Okay, let's see. Also, here, I'm going to post a link to join in case anyone wants to join. going to try to keep comments relatively to a minimum, just because I'm trying to. Almost struck that. He's trying to keep stuff, from going long over time. But yeah, if anyone wants to join, let's see. Also, in case the logos are too small or get lost on anyone, the title of this video is. Oh wow. Okay, hold on. I gotta remember this. Oh yeah, success is like a mountain. I also had to reduce it, so it should be you can't. But so success is like a mountain. Should be there, but you can't see or you can't know what's at the top until you climb it. You get the reference?
Yeah, no, with the Ten Commandments and stuff. Yep.
Wait, what? No, but do you get what it's from?
No, where are you getting it from?
Oh, hey, Elsie. Okay, let me see if I can find it. Also, I think it's wait here. Let's see. Let me see if let's see. 1 second. I'm hoping this. Let's see. Hope I'm didn't get this. Wait, is it? Dang it. I hope I'm right about this, but I might be wrong. Let's see. Is like 1 moment. Here. Let's see. Let's see. Is that here? Shit. I don't think I can find the specific. Okay, 1 second.
I mean, I understand that's one of the many mountain metaphors. Again, you have is another one is seeing what's on the other side of the mountain. You also have like the Miley Cyrus song. It's the climb it's the point, not what's at the top. Yeah, you can play with the mountain metaphor very, very, very much. I just didn't know the specific one you were drawing from.
Let's see. I hope I didn't get confused and accidentally. Let's see. All right, 1 second. I'd say it, but I don't want to give it away until I'm sure, so I'm just waiting to see if I can find. Okay. Yeah, I'm not. Shoot. So this totally might not be it. But let's see. Here, does this have quotes? No. Sorry, give me a moment. Let's see, is it here? Nope. All right, here. Which is it? All right, let's see. All right, let's see. Okay, is this? I have no clue because some of these websites give fake quotes, and now I'm kind of afraid that because I don't actually know this well enough to reference it, I might just be sitting here looking like a dumbass, and I cannot find any. How is it that I cannot find this quote anywhere? Shoot, I might have been had. That's unfortunate.
Oh, I regularly have things that it's like, I know I read that somewhere. I just can't find where now. Yeah, if this is the first time that's happened to you, don't worry. It'll be more. Get used to it.
It could also be something that it's possible it's such a common quote that it's not attributed to that. But anyway, it's the whole joke is Jethro Bodine from Beverly Hillbillies, except in this case, the original Jethro. What? Yeah.
You can't recall earlier years' deeds of unworthiness. So, and this is brought down in the Rambam. You shouldn't remind the person of his past. You shouldn't remind the person of what he did. So what's going on over here? Possibly maybe we're actually praising him. We're praising him. It's not derogatory. Let me tell you why. When we call a guy Kohen Midian, when we call him the priest, Mr. Atheist, when you call him an atheist, or he was an atheist, Loma, that is a praise. He
wasn't.
Even though this man Yitro, he was a Kohen Midian, which indicates two things. Number one, Heyoto Rosh LeMidian. That means first of all he's an important guy. Forget religion 1 second. Just politically he was important. Ve'aduk, number two, La'avodah Zarah. Number two, he was religiously an important guy. He was filled with idolatry. So telling you that he's Kohen Midian is two things. Number one, he was important politically. Number two, he's important religiously. And Torah is over here trying to tell us, nonetheless, nonetheless, he did things that were in direct contrast to these two facets of his identity. So his actions, and we're about to show what these two things are, but what he's about to do is actually worthy of praise precisely because he's Kohen Midian. What the Torah is trying to do is contrast what he's about to do to who he was. And that is something that is praiseworthy. And when I show you a guy that he became very successful, I say, yeah, but the guy used to be he wasn't always like that. He didn't have money for college. The guy was he had addictions, he had things. Look how far he came. So that you're saying in a praiseworthy way. That's to contrast how his success is versus how low he was. That is something that's very, very worth emulating. That's actually a praise. That's a bigger praise. When I show you a guy who's successful, and I tell you a story about athlete, right, Michael Jordan, and I show you, but Michael Jordan in high school, he didn't make that basketball team. That's not putting him down. That's actually praising him even more. By sometimes showing how low someone once was is actually giving them even a greater compliment. And that's what the Torah is trying to do. Keneged heyoto gadol, by telling you that Moshe over here is very big politically in Midian. Amar choten Moshe. So over here, look at this. Look how he reads the pasuk. Unbelievable. Vayishma Yitro. Yitro heard. Who is Yitro? Kohen Midian. He's the priest of Midian. Choten Moshe, and he's the father-in-law of Moshe. You would think those are just two descriptions. Says the Orah Hayim. No. He's telling you that he actually preferred the title Choten Moshe. And what does that mean, Choten Moshe, the father-in-law of Moshe? That means Shenitchaten le'adam. Think about this. Here is this great man, Kohen Midian. Here is this very important guy. He's got, politically, status. And yet, Nitchaten le'adam shelo noda lo gdula adayin. Who did he let his daughter Tzipporah marry? Who did his daughter marry? Married? Nobody. Who is this guy? Moshe? What kind of name is that? Never heard of him. What does he work for? Which company? Who's his father? Who was Moshe? Moshe was a nobody at the time. He was a fugitive. He ran away at 20 years old for killing somebody. He was not even from here. He's not from Midian. He's from Egypt. He's Egyptian. Get him out of here. What are you doing here? You're going to let your daughter Tzipporah. You're a very important guy. Get any guy you want for your daughter. And now you're letting this random guy Moshe take your beautiful princess who you raised your whole life, Tzipporah, your oldest daughter. Why would Yitro do that? So that's actually a praise. Kohen Midian, even though he was the Kohen of Midian, he didn't let status get any guy you want for your daughter. And now you're letting this random guy Moshe take your beautiful princess who you raised your whole life, Tzipporah, your oldest daughter. Why would Yitro do that? So that's actually a praise. Kohen Midian, even though he was the Kohen of Midian, he didn't let status get in the way. He didn't let. Sometimes we allow superficial things to cloud our judgment of life. How many times in a marriage we allow external things to make the decision? We say no to somebody because They don't have the last name. We say no because what will the wedding look like? We say no because what sect of the community do they part of? We say no because what shul do they pray in, right? We say no to things that are so superficial, that don't matter. And there are really, really good people out there, but some people don't give them a chance because of the outside, unimportant things. And really, much more important than name, right? Much more important than the last name, right? These things. What's his first name? Who's the guy? What are they? What are the midot? And Yitro knew this. Moshe had no status. And this is usually something that people are very particular about when you're very important. If you're a president, if you're in politics, if you're a governor, your daughter marries someone else who's very important. Especially when he's so unique, when it's Yitro. He's the head guy, he's a ruler. You're going to give your daughter to Moses? Who's Moses? Who is he? Right? But he did this. Why? Because he saw Moshe was a real guy. He saw Moshe was a good character. He saw Moshe had good midot, right? He didn't care that he's not going to have a Sha'arei Tzion wedding. Okay, it won't be a Sha'arei Tzion wedding. Who cares about that? How many people are so focused on the wedding that it trumps even what the marriage will look like? They focus more on the wedding than the marriage. They'll take someone who's maybe average because it's going to come with a beautiful, maybe destination wedding. But average, you care about the wedding. You should care more about the marriage. What will the marriage look like? What will it be for the next 60, 70, 80 years? You focus on 4 hours. The name, it's the glitter, it's all of the pomp. It looks nice to the eyes of everyone else. And Yitro didn't say that. Yitro didn't allow superficial things to cloud his judgment. He didn't say, who is this guy, Moshe? Nobody knows him. He went for the real deal. And really, Moshe, if you think about it superficially, is not impressive. Let's be honest, not impressive. Who was Moshe? At 80, who was he? 79. He had a stutter. Okay, the guy couldn't talk well. The guy's a fugitive. He's a shepherd. Okay, he's what is he? What does he do? He's sleeping at wells. The guy was sleeping at a well. Again, I don't mean to denigrate Moshe. I'm just trying to give you a little bit of perspective. What would you look at it at the time, in real time? It's always nice in hindsight. Every girl today, she wants to marry Rav Moshe Feinstein, at 90, when he was perfect. Girls don't realize that boys at 20 are not going to be Rav Moshe Feinstein at 90. Rav Moshe Feinstein at 90 wasn't Rav Moshe Feinstein at 20. You know what I mean? You got to realize the guy you're going to get is going to have flaws. You want to marry a perfect guy at 20? You expect the guy to be perfect at 20, 25, 30? You have to work your whole life to get to perfection. No one reaches perfection, but you got to realize that people have flaws. And how many people today, they throw away someone because of flaws? Having a flaw, depends what kind, depends, are they working on it, right? Just because a guy has something doesn't mean you throw it away. But today everyone wants perfection. Who would marry Moshe? Anyone in the community would marry Moshe? The guy was old, okay? He was a bachelor, old man, single. He didn't have money. I don't know, he didn't have money. He wasn't rich. He got rich later from the Luchot. He wasn't rich. He didn't have family with him. He was alone. Literally, the guy was a loner. His whole family alone was there. He had stutter. He didn't speak well. Who was Moshe? Think about it from Yitro's perspective. It's a leap of faith. God didn't speak to Moshe yet. Moshe wasn't a prophet. He was still a nobody. But Yitro didn't allow superficial things to make that decision. Who you marry? It's not about It's not about people say I want to marry someone that they that they're this and they're kolel. Doesn't matter if you, by the way, what level of religion. There's always superficial things, but nothing's more important than midot. Good character. You have a guy who on the outside, that they're this and they're kolel. Doesn't matter if you, by the way, what level of religion. There's always superficial things, but nothing's more important than midot. Good character. You have a guy who on the outside looks like he's the most amazing learner. Yeah, he finished Shas at 15. Okay, that means he's a good guy. Doesn't mean he's a good guy. Unfortunately, today, good learner and good guy is not synonymous. When Rav Yisrael Salanter was suggested to marry, I believe, the granddaughter of Rav Chaim Ozer. Rav Chaim Ozer, I apologize if I got the names wrong, but I think those are the names. Not Rav Salanter, Rav Dessler. So Rav Chaim Ozer was asked by his son, should I allow my daughter to marry this boy? He's a very big learner. And Rav Chaim Ozer, he quoted the pasuk. The pasuk says, when it comes to a marriage, et biti natati leish hazeh. I allow my daughter to marry this man. And Rav Chaim Ozer said in a letter to his son, first requirement when you're looking for marriage, ish. He's got to be a mensch. Got to be a good person. Then we'll look into, is he a good learner? The first thing, he's got to be a good person. If he's a good person, then it's good. Of course, Rav Dessler, amazing ish. Greatest person, right? But you got to have first thing is first. First thing, you got to have good midot. That's the first step in life, my friends. And again, in life, sometimes we don't remember that. We look for superficial things.
Any thoughts on that before we continue?
No, I pretty much agree with his assessment at the end. I don't understand where he's getting the idea that Jethro was an idolater. That's like nowhere in there. And the Jethro hate, I just don't get. it's almost easier to fit a narrative of Jethro was the priest of Yahweh, and he sent Moses on the mission in order to bring the Hebrews out of Egypt, and Moses was reporting back on everything that Yahweh did while they were there.
Wait, so you're telling
Bring,
me that Jethro dressed up as a tree?
well, maybe, I don't know. Told Moses to make like a tree and leaf out of here. I don't. That's a bad joke, but yeah.
Leave my people go. Let my people leave.
Again, the whole seeing the burning bush, that just could have been you know, um, the rite of passage for the Midianites. That's how they go encounter Yahweh. Their version of the Eleusinian mysteries.
Yeah, it's definitely something that at some point I want to get someone on who knows a bit more about the Midianites, um, like, from, I mean, because even though I don't know if they're still around today, there is still tribes that have connections to them.
Oh no, there's lots of old traditions in the Arabian Peninsula there. And I agree with you. I'd love to know about more about it. I've done some research on it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to say what I have. But it's one of those. It's like I'd like to know if that's not the truth because it seems to fit fairly well. I'd like to know how close that is to the truth. And if not, just what's a closer option tag.
Yeah, another thing I found really interesting. Do you know what tribe Muhammad was from?
Yeah, that was the Koresh tribe.
And do you know what larger group or what greater tribe they were part of?
Oh, I forget off the top of my head, but I always also noticed the whole Koresh tribe and Korah from the Bible and seeing that parallel there as well. But so
It
go on,
Not
B. What you
likely
were
at
saying?
all. I mean, I feel like probably you want to see that connect because of the whole connection to Petra, but Quraysh, at least from what I'm aware of, is more connected to the name of Cyrus, or potentially, let's see, Quraysh is their name. Sources differ as to the etymology of Quraysh, with one theory holding that it was a diminutive form of Kirsch or shark. Their genealogist Hisham ibn al-Kalbi asserted that there was no eponymous founder of Quraysh. Rather, the name stemmed from Takarush, an Arabic word meaning a coming together or association. Quraysh um, gained their name when Qusay ibn Kilab, a sixth-generation descendant of Fir ibn Malik, gathered together his kinsmen and took control of the Kaaba. Prior to this, Fir's offspring lived in scattered nomadic groups among their Kinana relatives. Now, the Phoenicians call themselves Kinani, and the Canaanites are Kanani. I don't know. It's like it feels like there might be something there, but I really don't know.
Yeah, no, I don't either. It's just I notice the parallels, and as I go along, I rule them out as factual evidence, you know, requires.
Yeah.
And I'd be curious to see if the Bible has this, not the Bible, but the Quran, if they have a parallel story for Korah in there. Be interesting. I don't know off the top of my head. I'm not a Quranic scholar. I've read through it like
Mhm.
once all the way through and then different parts at times. Tag.
Oh no, I was wrong. I thought I wait. No, I might not be. Okay, so this is interesting. So look at this. So I think I might have. So this is Abdimmanaf. I thought it was Abdimmanat, which could mean servant of Manat, which was, but no, that's not what it is. But you do have Banu Abd Shams, and Abd Shams means servant of the sun.
Interesting.
Let's see. Um, hmm. Sorry. Um, Banu Abd ibn Abd Manaf. Doesn't say anything about. Doesn't really give a whole lot about him. Anyway, back to this.
We look for external things. We're more worried about our reputation. People say Yitro didn't care about.
Happy 120.
And that's the pasuk
of
Vayishma Yitro Kohen Midian. Yitro, who was Kohen Midian, he was a very important guy. He was, wow, what a Kohen this guy was. Even though he was very important. Look who he was. He was Choten Moshe. He allowed his daughter to marry Moshe. Very important guy. Let his daughter marry nobody. Why? It shows you about Yitro. It shows you that he's a smart man. It shows you it's his praise. It is a praise. Call the guy Kohen Midian is praiseworthy.
Jethro was also
although he was so
important
important.
Pharaoh, so he would have known.
So allow that to cloud who his daughter married. Today, if your daughter is right, if you're an important guy, my daughter's got to marry someone who's going to be making, this amount of digits, and he's going to be providing her with a house on this block, and it's going to be in this area and vacation and this amount of cars and help, and those are all superficial. Yitro allowed his daughter, who he was the most important guy, but who did he take? Nobody. That is to Yitro's praise. Okay, that's all one side of the equation. That's on the Kohen Midian politically side. But then now there's a whole other side. Also, Kohen Midian means religiously he was a priest. Secondly, from the fact that he was attached to idolatry, which means Kohen, literally priest. So besides politically, he was also religiously a priest. So now the pasuk telling us number two. So praise number one is that he was Choten Moshe, and he allowed his daughter to marry a nobody like Moshe. And by the way, Moshe never forgot that. Moshe appreciated that. Remember when God told Moshe to go free the Jewish people back in Parashat Shemot? Moshe didn't go straight to redeem the Jewish people. After he agreed to go, which by the way itself is a whole argument with God for 7 days, but even after he agreed to go, he had to go back. It says he went back to Midian, and he had to get permission from his father-in-law to go. He asked his father-in-law, is it okay with you if I leave? What? What are you asking the guy? He asked, go. God send you, man. Just go. Don't ask. Just tell him. I'm not asking you, I'm just telling you, okay? I'm leaving. No, Moshe asked, can I leave? Look at what's called in Hebrew, hakarat hatov, appreciation. Moshe never forgot that favor. You took me when I was a nobody. How could I forget that? Even though now he's a somebody. Now he's more important than his father-in-law. Now he made money. Now he's rich. Now he's successful. Now he's popular. Now he's this. Now he's that. You can never forget what your father-in-law did for you. This is a favor Moshe never forgot. And for the rest of time, he was appreciative. He went to ask him permission to leave, even though God sent him. That's wild. Think about that for a second. That is amazing. That's appreciation. So that's all one side of the equation. And then the other side is that he also was a religiously important guy. He was Kohen. And corresponding to this, that's the next pasuk. Ata yadati, not the next pasuk, it's in a few psukim, where he says, Ata yadati ki gadol Adonai mikol ha-Elohim. Now I know, says Yitro, that God is greater than any God. Now, for a regular average guy to say God's the greatest, wouldn't be so impressive. That's not something that you should write in the Torah. You should have a whole parashah that this man Yitro recognized God. Okay, many people recognize God. It was so impressive. You know why it's so impressive? It's because the guy was Kohen Midian. That's Kohen Umma Ahad Me'u Bahim. The guy was the biggest atheist or polytheist. The guy believed in so many gods. He studied every religion. The biggest theologist out there. He studied so much about comparative religion and everything. That's impressive. Imagine I tell you Richard Dawkins believes in God. What? That's not possible. That's not. How did that happen? Richard Dawkins? Are you sure? Yes. It's a guy like that. Stephen Hawking. What? These guys believe in God? Yes. That's impressive because they're the biggest atheist. So you tell me now that they believe in God? That's very impressive. That's much more impressive than if a regular guy who didn't write books or give courses on atheism that they believe in God.
This guy's building a house of cards.
That's what the pasuk is saying. You're telling me a guy like Yitro, who was Kohen Midian, that he says Ata yadati. A guy like him says, I believe in God. That's the guy. The guy knows what he's talking about. He studied the other side. He saw the other side. He knows what it's like. He was a heavy idolater, and now he's on the right side. He saw the light. It's very impressive. If you have a rabbi who was born a rabbi, day one, he was learning from 1 year old, and he never went to he never went to any things. He never did any bad things in his life. Okay, very nice. Hazak Baruch. But that's not as impressive as if you have someone who Rabbi Uri Zohar, alav shalom. The guy was an icon. That was a celebrity actor. You tell me a guy like that became a rabbi. Wow, that's very impressionable. That's something that I can relate to. I also enjoy Hollywood and I don't know those things. And to tell me that he became a rabbi, he knows what he's talking about because he saw both sides. I'd rather trust someone like him about Torah than someone else. Shlomo HaMelech, who's trying to convince us about the futilities of life, about physical things. Shlomo HaMelech is right in his book. I saw it all. I saw it. I saw money. I saw cars. I saw women. I saw everything. And I'm telling you Hevel havalim. So you have credentials. Yeah, I listen to what you have to say, right? You know, you open the opening.
It's also possible there was a priest of Yahweh and he also accepted other gods, but that now he was acknowledging that, like, it could have been that. There's so many ways of understanding this, but the point is, nowhere does it say which god he worships, so we can't know.
And it's like, we don't even have established that Jethro was an idolater, let alone this horrible, idolater. It's like you're building it, and then you're building your springboard, and then you're jumping off into your empty pool tank.
It's a good thing it's all imaginary, otherwise he would end up with a really bad injury. It would be like, imagine you do the perfect leap, but the pool you're trying to leap into is empty.
Exactly. Yeah. No. I always wonder in these situations, what would Jethro say about to this guy when he's describing him to him?
I have a bet. I'll raise you one better. What would Jethro do?
Yeah, no, it's one of those where, like I said, my take was always Jethro was a pretty decent guy, and he almost more or less put Moses on the whole Yahweh, that set Moses straight.
Unless you want to go with the interpretation that Moses came to this land of paganism and he managed to extract out the one monotheistic God. It's like, oh, Columbus, I have discovered America, and the natives are like, huh?
Yeah, the Columbusing. I was gonna say, you've seen that video, right?
Yeah, from College Humor.
Yep.
Let's see if I can see anything. Let's see. Oh, you know what it is? Yeah, let's see. I can't find anything on Jethro. Oh, not priest. Jethro pagan. What shows up? Jethro or pagan priest. Jethro tells me yeah, I don't know where this idea actually comes from. This would be a convenient time for Avi to hop on.
Well, if I had to guess there, Ariel, it comes from a lot of the idea that anybody who's not Jewish, especially back then, had to be worshiping the pagan gods.
Well, but again, the question. I mean, I see where you're coming from, but at the same time, it's kind of like, yeah, I can't find anything on this. Yeah, let's continue. Maybe we'll get some.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying the guy's right. I'm just saying that's the instinct that he's building off of.
I know, it seems odd because it's like normally whenever you have pagans, it talks about the god they worship and why that god is not as good as Yahweh. But all we see here is Jethro praising Yahweh.
And I would think that certainly by this point in time, after, that Jethro would have converted over at the very least before Moses would have left. Okay.
It's kind of like, who came first? The Moses the prophet or Jethro the prophet?
That brings up a good. I was going to say that brings up a good point as to why, if Yahweh had told Moses to go, why would Moses have talked to Jethro unless Jethro also had, say with Yahweh?
Yeah, it almost seems like Jethro is the high priest who passes on the mantle to Moses, or who passes on the mantle of leadership to Moses and the mantle of priesthood to Aaron. Because he probably had no sons of his own. Think about it.
No, that makes a lot of sense, and that's I hadn't quite considered it quite about the no sons of the own and the passing on the priesthood and the kingship, kind of the kingship separately. But can't argue at all with what you're saying. I think you nailed it, Tag.
You know, actually, and I think this is the same thing that actually happened with the Chabad movement, because the last Rebbe, he was not. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that he was actually he married the daughter of the previous Rebbe. So he basically married into the dynasty, for lack of a better term. Let me see if I can find something. Let's see. The 6th and 7th on Rebbe. Let's see. Chabad dynasty family tree.
No, I agree with a lot of what the rabbi. I think he's a rabbi, but what he's saying here, I just can't agree with him that Jethro was this idolater or all that.
Oh, I don't agree either.
Today, I'm going to show you the family tree of classical rabbis. Some of these rabbis were related in the traditional sense, such as those who belonged to the house of Hillel.
Wait, classical? Oh, wait, that's too early, I think.
Son of Simon ben Gamliel II.
Yeah, way too early. Let's see. Let's see. Odd family tree, maybe. 1988. Holy crap. 1988. That's almost 40 years ago. Wait. 20. Right? I'm like. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
It's like it scared me because I was almost like, wait, is that 50 or 40 years ago? Let's see. Maybe just Chabad family tree. Here.
So one thing I like to do when
What on earth does this have to?
mild interest in genealogy and stuff like that is I like to go to the Wikipedia page of a famous person and then see who their father is. If there's a Wikipedia page for their father, then you go check if that person has a Wikipedia page for their father, and so on down the line. If there's someone really famous like the King of England, the Queen of England, or the King of Spain, you can wind up following the line of Wikipedia pages for each respective father back centuries, back more than a millennium in some cases. And today I was messing around and I was doing it for this figure known as Menachem Mendel Schneerson, right? Who's the seventh, quote unquote, Rebbe, the seventh leader of a very prominent Hasidic Orthodox Jewish sect in New York. Anyone who's lived in New York for a long time has sort of seen their footprint, known as Lubavitchers or Chabad Lubavitch, right? So you often hear them referred to the Rebbe, and many of the people within that Lubavitcher Hasidic sect, they believe he's the Messiah, and I have a video relevant to that from the past. But whatever the case, I started messing around with a Wikipedia page for him, and English Wikipedia doesn't have much about his family, and even Hebrew Wikipedia doesn't have much for his family, but I found quite a bit on a website it's like a form of Wikipedia put out by the Lubavitcher sect, by the Chabad sect, and it's called Chabadpedia. And I'll show that in a second. So I have here on the screen sect by the Chabad sect, and it's called Chabadpedia. And I'll show that in a second. So I have here on the screen by the Lubavitcher sect, by the Chabad sect, and it's called Chabadpedia. And I'll show that in a second. So I have here on the screen a little family tree that I'm going to develop. It's not going to go back, millennia. At most, it'll go back, I don't know, a century and a half or something like that, right? But nonetheless, as we build this family tree backwards, you have the little key up in the top right. If you see a blue line, that means one person descends from the other. Blue line means one person is a parent of the other or the child of the other, in that relationship. And then if you see a red line, that means the two people are married. So blue line, parent-child relationship, red line, spouses, right? Okay, so with that, here's the Chabadpedia. He says it at the top, Chabadpedia. And I'll post, and yes, it's all in Hebrew, but I'll try to make it accessible. I'm just going to keep parent of the other key up. But nonetheless, as we build this family tree backwards, you have the little key up in the top right. If you see a blue line, that means one person descends from the other. Blue line means one person is a parent of the other or the child of the other, in that relationship. And then if you see a red line, that means the two people are married. So blue line, parent-child relationship, red line, spouses, right? Okay, so with that, here's the Chabadpedia. He says it at the top, Chabadpedia. And I'll post, and yes, it's all in Hebrew, but I'll try to make it accessible. I'm just going to click the links and stuff like that. I was having fun with this, and we're going to build a family tree based on that. I thought it was mildly interesting. I hope others find this interesting. This is going to be a lighthearted video. But so this is the Chabadpedia page, and I'll share a link in the video description. I hope others find this interesting. Accessible. I'm just going to click the links and stuff like that. I was having fun with this, and we're going to build a family tree based on that. I thought it was mildly interesting. I hope others find this interesting. This is going to be a lighthearted video. But so this is the Chabadpedia page, and I'll share a link in the video description for Rabbi. It says here at the top, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson. As I said before, so it should say it here. Let's see. So as it says here. So you see Admor in blue. Admor is an acronym for Adonenu Moreinu V'Rabbeinu. It means something like our Lord, teacher, and rabbi, or teacher and master. I don't know, whatever you want to put. It says Admor Hashvi'i. That means the seventh Admor. I'm just going to say Admor or Rebbe is how they say it in Yiddish to mean leader. So this is the seventh and final leader of the Chabad Hasidic sect. Again, if you lived in New York, you've probably seen his face on minivans. Means the seventh Admor. I'm just going to say Admor or Rebbe is how they say it in Yiddish to mean leader. So this is the seventh and final leader. Or teacher and rabbi, or teacher and master, or Adonenu Moreinu V'Rabbeinu. Says here, so you see Admor in blue. Admor is an acronym for Adonenu Moreinu V'Rabbeinu. It means something like our
Okay, so yeah,
Adonenu,
our Lord, Rabbeinu, our teacher, and or Rabbeinu, our
I'm just going to say Admor or Rebbe is how they say it in Yiddish to mean leader. So this is the seventh and final leader of the Chabad Hasidic sect. Again, if you lived in New York, you've probably seen his face on minivans and RVs or something like that. For his
Adonenu, our Lord,
and we're just going to go ahead and look into his family tree,
our master.
So scrolling down,
Moreinu, our
some
teacher.
information about his birth, and let's see. I'm sorry, forgive me. I'm doing this in real. Oh no, this isn't it. Here we go. Toledot, which means it's generations. Oh, okay. There's a picture of him as a child, and it says he was born. Oh, by the way, the reason why I'm doing it on this day, notice it says he was born on the 11th of Nisan, which is today's date on the rabbinic calendar. So it's his birthday. I saw some Hasidic Jews making a big deal about that. So it seemed an auspicious time to play around and look into his lineage. So it goes on to say here that his father was a man named Levi Yitzchak, right? So let's go to the page of Levi Yitzchak. And so this is the father of the seventh leader, the seventh Admor, the seventh Rebbe of the Lubavitcher sect. So I'm just going to add that to our little family tree here, little blue line, establishing that, Menachem Mendel Schneerson was the son of a man named Levi Yitzchak Schneerson, who was not a leader in the organization. And now, returning to the Chabadpedia page for Levi Yitzchak Schneerson, we'll start going through his information. Refresh this. Here we go. So it says, here's the information on him. And okay, here we go. Here's the information. His biography says he was born on the 18th of Nisan, and it says that he was born in so-called White Russia. And his father, right here, here's his father's name, Baruch Shneor.
Wait, do they have Belarus or do they have Russia Levana?
18th of Nisan, and it says that
Russia Halvana, or the White Russia.
So-called White Russia. And his father, right here, here's his father's name, Baruch Schneerson. Right, so we're going to click that for his father, the grandfather of the seventh Rebbe of the Lubavitcher sect, and we're just going to add that to our little family tree. So a little blue line going from Levi Yitzchak Schneerson to Baruch Shneor Zalman Schneerson. We'll go back to the Chabadpedia page, and you see it's Baruch Shneor Zalman Schneerson. And now we'll go into his biography, and we go into here. It turns out that, as it says here, his father had the same name as his son, so it's Levi Yitzchak Schneerson. So we'll go ahead and click on that. And here we go, Levi Yitzchak Schneerson. Right, now let's add that to our little family tree, blue line. Baruch Shneor Zalman Schneerson was the son of Levi Yitzchak Schneerson. I'm not bothering looking at the years or anything like that. So here's him. Now we're going to go into his info. They have a little family tree here, which is quite interesting. But let me see. They should have some information on his father. Forgive me. Let's see. And here we go. And it says here, it's actually they give his father and his father's father in a sense, because it says that he was the son of Baruch Shalom, who himself was the son of Admor Hasemak Tzedek, right? So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And here's his father, right? So we're going to just put in another little blue line in our family tree. Levi Yitzchak Schneerson, the great-grandfather of the seventh leader of the Chabad Hasidic sect, the Lubavitcher Hasidic sect. His father was named Baruch Shalom Schneerson, right? And then notice it says Ben Admor Hasemak Tzedek, right? So that's significant. Let's see if we can find this here. So he's the son of says right here, right, he's the son of the person who has this title, Hatzemach Sedek, which means like the righteous branch, and some messianic pretensions there, or illusions, messianic illusions there. So here's this page. So this is his father. So his name is also Menachem Mendel Schneerson. And when you go down here, it should note here in a moment. Here we go. Tzemach Sedek. Let's see. Hashlishi, right? So he says Hashlishi, he's the so-called the seventh prince, the seventh leader of the Admorei of Chabad. He's the third. Forgive me for saying seventh. He's the third leader. So we're going to add that information in. That this man here, throw that into our little family tree. The father of Baruch Shalom Schneerson was the third Rebbe, the third leader of the Chabad sect, who himself had the same name as the seventh leader, the seventh Rebbe. His name is Menachem Mendel Schneerson, but he had the title the Tzemach Tzedek, which means like the righteous branch or something like that, right? Okay, so now let's find his parents. Let's see. This, just because of its relevance to the tree, I'm going to try and skip over his father and look instead to his mother. So here we go into his little biography. It says here his father, there's his father, and then his mother, you see it says Harabanit, and her name is Devorah Leah, right? Deborah Leah. So this is the mother. No, it's going to make sense in a second why I'm doing this, because his father, I want to try and line it up into the line of all the leaders of this sect. So his mother was Devorah Leah, so I'm going to click on that.
It's kind of interesting, though.
It's
almost like they were both born to these dynasties. Moses was born to the house of Levi, and Nachum Mendel Schneerson was born to the family of the third Rebbe. And Levi was the third child of Jacob, and then the third Rebbe. I don't know. It's kind of interesting, given it's like I feel like some people would look really into it. I'm just playing on some interesting things.
I'm more curious about what's this. Did they notice any significance about him being the seventh and final one, and that like they don't have a current one anymore? Any significance about capping it at 7? Because that the significance of 7.
Yeah.
And all.
I mean, I've definitely noticed it. I think on some level, it kind of worked out because he also didn't end up having any children. So the fact that because before him, the previous Rebbe had a daughter that he married. So there is really no way that someone could marry into or become part of the family in a way any more than any other member of the Chabad community. So that's part of it. So it's kind of like it's a chicken or the egg thing. It's like did it end at 7 because of the typological or because of the what's the term typology
Geometric.
Not even it was it because of the typological nature of the number 7 or was the typological number was the typological nature of the number 7 the reason why they didn't end up being able to have any children? It's kind of like, well, if you believe that God's behind all this stuff, then you could argue, well, that's it. But I mean, that gets super pretentious because it's like, well, who knows the mind of God?
Well, my answer to that is we know it once we see it when it's in its action. Okay.
Yeah, if you know the mind of God, your mind go kablooey.
Well, I'm just saying, when you see it in action in the world, you know what God was thinking.
True. But at the same time, you might see what God is doing. You might not see what God is thinking.
Well, I'm going on the basis of, action and thought are, when you have action and thought are basically merged.
I mean, not necessarily. Plenty of thoughts happen without actions, and plenty of actions happen without thought.
Yeah, I don't know about that with being the case with God. That's all. Okay.
I wouldn't be so sure I wouldn't be so quick to be sure about that. But okay, wait, what's this? Next is Zero said an Egyptian temple of Hathor at Timnah continued to be used during the Midianite occupation of the site. Terminal A, Bronze Age, early Iron Age. The Midianites transformed the Hathor mining temple. Transformed the Hathor mining temple into a desert tent shrine. In addition to the discovery of post holes, large quantities of red and yellow decayed cloth with beads woven into it, along with numerous copper wire copper rings and wire used to suspend the curtains were found all along the walls of the shrine. Benno Rothenberg, the excavation of the site suggested that the Midianites were making offerings to Hathor, especially since a large number of Midianite votive vessels, 25%, were discovered in the shrine. However, whether Hathor or some other deity was object of devotion during this period is difficult to ascertain. A small bronze snake with gilded head was also discovered in the naos of the Timna mining shrine, along with a hoard of metal objects that included a small bronze figurine of a bearded male god, which, according to Rothenberg, was Midianite in origin. Michael Homan observes that the Midianite tent shrine at Timna is one of the closest parallels. Okay, so this is interesting. I think Zero might have just found some evidence, or the closest thing you're going to find to evidence of the Exodus.
No, definitely related. No, it's a good find.
So, do me a favor, Zero. Can you email me where you got that from? Because I want to look into that as well. But here, okay, we'll continue anytime.
Right, so we're going to add that to our little family tree. The third leader of the group, the third Rebbe, was the son of Devorah Leah. And so, I know that's not paternal, but whatever, it's going to work for this matter, right? So, okay, so now let's look into her biography, her little, genealogy. And it says that she was the daughter of, her father was Rabbi Shneor Zalman Admor Hazakin, right? The elder Admor, the elder leader, known in
of Liadi.
That'd be the very first leader of the sect. So we'll click on that. And we'll go to his little Chabadpedia page. Here he is. And that's the first leader of the sect. So we'll add that to our little tree, Devorah Leah. She was the daughter of the Alter Rebbe, the first leader of the sect, Shneor Zalman. Oh, and by the way, Menachem Mendel Schneerson, apparently, I read somewhere, we didn't show it on this page, but apparently his father's name was something like Altshula or something like that, but he took on Schneerson, because he was the son of, grandson technically, but to signify he was a descendant of Shneor Zalman, apparently. All right, so there we go. We have this branch of the tree, but now I'd like to go back to the seventh Rebbe. So let's scroll back to the seventh Rebbe. Here we go. Forgive me. Here we go. And there we go. Menachem Mendel Schneerson, the seventh Rebbe, right in our little tree. And let's see if I can find his wife, mention of his wife. It's right here. Play. Find his, and there we go. Menachem Mendel Schneerson, the seventh Rebbe, right in our little tree. And let's see if I can find his wife, mention of his wife. It's right here. Play. Of his wife. It's right here. Play. Okay, here we go. Delay. Find his wife. Go. Menachem Mendel Schneerson, the seventh Rebbe, right in our little tree. And let's see if I can find his wife, mention of his wife. It's right here. Delay. Okay, here we go. So, says that on the 6th of Kislev, his wife is a woman named Chaya Mushka Schneerson. Interesting. She has the same last name as him, not because she married him, but of course, marrying him, she takes on that name, but she had the name before she married him. So he married a woman with the same name. We're going to pull up her page. So here she is, Chaya Mushka Schneerson, and we're going to put that in our little tree, a little red line signifying that the seventh leader was married to a woman named Chaya Mushka Schneerson. So now let's try to run through this quickly. It says right here, Bato, she's the daughter of Admor Harayatz, right? So we're going to click on this. This is her father. It's still loading. Bear with me here. That's her father, right? And his name is Yosef Yitzhak Schneerson. So, wait a minute. Let me get a little information on him. Should say here that he's the sixth leader. Let's see. I'm just reading through this really quickly. Yeah, here it is. Hu Admor Hashishi, right? And so he's the sixth leader. So we're going to add that into our little tree. So the father of Chaya Mushka Schneerson, which was the wife of the seventh leader of the group, was the sixth leader of the group, Yosef Yitzhak Schneerson. Now let's go into his, biography, his lineage, etc. And it says here that he was the son, his father. It says here that his father was named, was known as Admor Harashab. So we're going to click on that. And there's his name, Shalom Dovber Schneerson. And let's see, I should have some information about him being the leader. And let me see, forgive the delay. Here we go. It says here, who Admor Hamishi. He is the fifth leader. So adding that to our little tree, the sixth Rebbe, who was the father of the wife of the seventh Rebbe, his own father, the father of the sixth Rebbe, was the fifth Rebbe, the fifth leader. So the sixth Rebbe was named Yosef Yitzhak Schneerson, and the fifth Rebbe, his father, was named Shalom Dovber Schneerson. All right, that's this gentleman here. Now let's find his father. Right, so let's see what his little biographical information. I hope you're having fun. I hope this isn't too boring for you. Here's his father, Rabbi Samuel. Right, it says here, Rabbi Shmuel Schneerson, Admor Maharash, excuse me. And let's get some information on him really quickly. Okay, here we go. Should say that, here we go. He's the Admor Harabi'i, the fourth leader of the group, fourth Rebbe. So let's add that to our little tree. Shmuel Schneerson, fourth Rebbe, was the father of the fifth Rebbe. And now let's go into his parentage. Let's see. Oops, excuse me. There we go. And it says that his father was the Tzemach Tzedek, right? So I'm going to go ahead. Who we mentioned before, that's the third leader. And at this point, we should also look at the mother of the fourth leader, right? Find his wife here. It says here that the wife of the third leader, who's the mother of the fourth leader, her name was also Chaya Mushka Schneerson. So get that. All right, this is a different Chaya Mushka Schneerson. This is the, it says Ishat Admor HaTzemach Tzedek, so she's the wife of the third Rebbe, right? And I'm going to look up her father in a second. But just let's add that to our little tree. I'm going to slightly adjust this. Say that the third Rebbe was married to a woman named Chaya Mushka, and they were the parents of both the fourth Rebbe named Shmuel Schneerson, as well as Baruch Shalom Schneerson, who was not a leader in the group, but he was the great-great-grandfather of the seventh leader, right? That started to take place. But anyway, back to Chaya Mushka, the mother of the fourth leader and the wife of the third leader. Now let's go into her information, and we should have it. Here it is. So it says, Abia, her father, Admor. Right, here we go. Here we go. So his name is Dovber Shneori, right? Dovber Shneori. And so let's add that to our little tree, blue line, going from Chaya Mushka up to this. Oh, I forgot to mention, he's the second leader. And so the second leader was the father of Chaya Mushka, the wife of the third leader, right? Interesting enough. And finally, we're just going to get his parentage of the second leader. But it says, right, his father, you see, Admor Hazaken, the elder leader, or as they say in Yiddish, the Alter Rebbe, who we showed before, this guy. So let's add that to our. We're just going to get his parentage of this, right? Interesting enough. And finally, we're just going to get his parentage of the second leader. But it says, right, his father. You see.
This is so interesting.
The elder leader.
I mean, I really didn't think I'd be interested in
this guy. So let's add that to our tree, and then we're pretty much done. So the second Rebbe was the son of the first Rebbe, the first leader. Okay, and that's it. I wanted to show this tree because it's interesting. I specifically want to look at the third leader and the seventh leader. The third Rebbe and the seventh Rebbe. They're both in bold on the right. Notice that both of them did not descend from a previous leader. Like you notice the sixth leader was the son of the fifth leader. The fifth leader was the son of the fourth leader. The second leader was the son of the first leader, right? Most of these leaders in the group are sons of previous leaders. But interestingly enough, the seventh leader was not the son of the previous leader, but he did marry the daughter of the previous leader. And so too, the third leader was not the son of the previous leader, but he did marry the daughter of the previous leader.
Holy crap, do you see this?
Yeah. No, it looks a lot like the Bible lineage. You have a lot of intermarried.
No, but look at the names, dude. So the third Rabbi was named Menachem Mendel Schneerson, the Tzemach Tzedek, and he married Chaya Mushka. The seventh Rabbi was named Menachem Mendel Schneerson, and he married Chaya Mushka.
Okay. Well, both of them were using good traditional family names.
True, but it just feels very resonant.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested. So the first one is the founding Schneer.
Yeah, Schneer Zalman. Then he's the parent of both Dvorah Leah, who was the mother of the third Rabbi.
Yeah.
But so the third Rabbi. Okay, so listen. So the second Rabbi was the son of Schneer Zalman, and so he started going by Schneori. So he was the second Rabbi. His nephew, his nephew was Menachem Mendel Schneerson III, who married his daughter. So this is going to kind of this is almost like is like Rebecca and Lavan, except the opposite. Except none of them are bad. So it's just like well, at least not to my knowledge. Good or neutral. The point is they're not evil villains like Lavan. But basically, so you have what is it? The second rabbi's daughter marries the third rabbi, who is his nephew. So this is a first cousin marriage, I think. Which again, not that different from what was the norm at the time. Again, should try to avoid that now, and by try to avoid, I mean we should avoid that now.
Well, they did back in biblical times too. They only went to the first cousin marriage if the sister marriage wasn't available. Tag.
Yes, and now we know about genetics. And you know what they say, sharing is caring, except when you're just, at the end of the day, if you offer to share your food with your family, it's nice and everything, but you probably got it from the same restaurant. So, if you really want to have a fun time, if you want to be exposed to most type of food, you want your stomach to be resistant to most type of bacteria, you should probably eat a bunch of different type of food. And that's the closest I'm willing to go with this analogy.
Stay away from that rail, Ariel. Stay away.
Yeah. Well, on the bright side, and by bright side, I mean it's actually kind of sad. I have a very small family, and I'm basically have no one my age. So, on the bright side, no risk of that. On the negative side, it's kind of fucking lonely. But again, not lonely that way. I just mean it's lonely in general. But that's why chosen family is so important. But let's see. Continue. Okay.
And also notice that.
All right. So anyway, so you have so the third rabbi. So now the fourth rabbi is his son. So okay. So here you have this, it's almost like, look at this. So you have unification in this one, then splitting into his son and his daughter. His oh wow, it reverts. Also notice this. So Shmuel Zalman's daughter's son and Shmuel Zalman's son's daughter. So you notice this? What's going on here? See where I'm getting at?
Yeah, I think so. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the sexes or the genders, they reverse. So you have a son and a daughter, and it's actually it's the same. Think about it. So Rebecca and Lavan. So they're the children of Betuel. So imagine this. So it's like Betuel, then here you have Rivka, Rebecca, and here you have Lavan. Lavan has the two daughters. So instead of 𝐉𝐕𝐴, we'll just say that, this is Rachel and Leah. And Rachel and Leah marry the son of Rebecca, which would be Jacob. See what I'm getting at here? It fits the same parallel. This is really interesting. Ooh, I'm going to share this with my rabbi tomorrow. I hope he'll like this.
Oh no, it's definitely interesting. It's that idea of archetypal patterns, just in reality following those patterns.
Yeah. So then you have this pair, they have two children, at least that's listed here. You have Baruch Shalom Schneerson. And you have the fourth rabbi, which is Shmuel Schneerson. So here, what's interesting is, so technically, okay, so actually there was no one in Menachem Mendel Schneerson's line that was uniquely a rabbi that wasn't in the line of the fourth, fifth, and sixth rabbi. So they were cousins, but really the last rabbi that was in the line of Menachem Mendel Schneerson, also in the line of 𝐉𝐕𝐴 that he married. So this is really interesting. also a little bit disconcerting, but again, I mean, it's no different than what royals were doing. The only difference is that these people didn't have any fundamental power. Unless you're an anti-Semite, well, I mean, the point is they didn't have any fundamental power, but if you're an anti-Semite, you're willing to believe any crazy shit. So, you know. But no, they had no real institutional power besides that influence which they had over, you know, the people in the movement. But again, like, really wasn't that big of a movement from what I understand. I mean, it's I really need to learn more about the history of the Hasidic movement. It's something that's fascinated me for maybe like 5 years now. Maybe a little under 5 years, but the point is that I don't know. I used to view. I didn't know what Hasidic actually meant. I didn't realize it was connected to Chesed. And even though, you know, some of the stuff's way too just like, I can never imagine being so observant. I do, like, I really connect with the idea of like connecting to God through joy, and again, not in some, you know, hedonistic way, but in this idea of like, you know, using joy for good.
Makes sense.
That the seventh leader and the third leader have the exact same name, Menachem Mendel Schneerson. And notice that they both had wives with the same name, Chaya Mushka Schneerson. I don't know. That's interesting. That made it worth making
You
this
beat
video.
him to it, Ariel.
I hope you found this interesting. It's also interesting that the third Rebbe married his.
Actually, he beat it to me by a year.
First cousin, apparently. There's a lot of, I guess, intermarriage in these Orthodox Jewish families. But whatever the case, that's all. I'll stop here. I hope you found it interesting. I found it interesting. Hope you found it mildly interesting. I just wanted to do this video really quickly, and I did it sort of, you know, on the fly. I sort of freestyled it a little bit, and that's why it's, you know, raw and I guess sloppy. But whatever the case, I look forward to the comments of others. And I promise my forthcoming videos will be more interesting. I'm going to get back to language issues, Hebrew, and then and stuff like that. But I just wanted to do this for fun in light of the date, because I saw some Hasidic Jews talking about how today is the 11th of Nisan, or as they call it, Yud Aleph Nisan, the birthday of the seventh leader, who many of them consider the Messiah, even if they don't admit it publicly. So on that note, look forward to the comments of others. As always, God bless.
Interesting.
Line of Kohelet. Kohelet is one of the books of Tanakh, and it's one of the 5 Megillot of Tanakh, and it begins Divrei Kohelet ben David Melech Birushalayim, the words of Kohelet ben David, king of Jerusalem. By the way, look at this opening sentence of the book. Very arrogant, no? Imagine you wrote a book. You know who I am? I am Kohelet, the son of David, the king of Jerusalem. Whoa, a little bit. Take it easy. You're a little too much self-flex over there. But the answer is, he's coming to tell you that this world is empty, that this world is zero. In order for his words to have any credence, he has to establish that he is a somebody. And the bigger of a somebody you are, then the more important that statement is. And he begins and says, by the way, know who I am? Before I tell you what I'm about to tell you, let me first tell you who I am. About the author. Let me tell you about the author. I'm Kohelet. Kohelet, and he said, okay, who's Kohelet? Where does he know? Where does he come from? Oh, I came from David. David is David, Melech Israel. Even bigger. And by the way, not just Ben David. Who was David? Melech Birushalayim. He was a king, and he wasn't just a king, he was a king of Jerusalem, the capital of the world. That's who I am. So I've seen it all. I've been everywhere. I've been to all the parties. I've rubbed shoulders with who's and all the
I think Rome, Persia, and China would all beg to differ.
It's all empty. It's all nonsense. And Shlomo realizes that before he tells you that, he has to first establish his credence. His what right do you have to say that? What do you know about anything about life? What do you know? Do you know about money? Do you know about parties? Do you know about the good life? Did you have a vacation? Did you fly private? Did you go to the moon yet? You know, who are you? Where'd you go? And Shlomo says, oh, I've seen it all. I'm Kohelet ben David, Melech, Yerushalayim. I'm all of those. And therefore I have the right to say what I'm about to say, that this world is nothing. This world is empty. Because I've been there. I've seen it. If he was a nobody, then good job. Hazak Baruch. Easy for a poor guy to say, you know, don't worry about money and cars. You never tried a nice car. You never went to a nice party. Go, and then you'll change your mind. So Shlomo Melech says, no. I've been to all of them. I threw them all, the Great Gatsby. And I'm telling you, it's all nonsense. So over here, Yitro, for him to say that God's the greatest, who are you? What do you know about gods? Pasuk says, oh, he knows. Kohen Midian. He knows about gods. He was the biggest idolater of the time. He was Kohen Midian. He was the priest. He was the Pope. He was the biggest guy. And he's saying, Ata yadati, ki gadol Adonai mikol Elohim. That's impressive. Okay? That is something that's worth writing. So that is the Ora Hayim's opening idea of this beautiful pasuk. Ota amumro Kohen Midian. And not only that, but answer number 2 of why it says Kohen Midian, not only to tell you that it's impressive that he was politically a very big somebody and he took a nobody for his daughter, or that he was very important religiously and he still ended up coming to Judaism, monotheism. But another answer, the reason Yitro heard everything that happened just now, because what Yitro does is he leaves everything, he drops it all, and he comes to join the Jewish people in the desert. And the reason that he heard everything was because he was Kohen Midian. Because he was so important, the important people have more access to news than the unimportant people. Okay, the more important people get the real news. Unfortunately, today we are victims, and today you got to be a victim of something, right? So it's good to be a victim today. So you could all wave the victim flag. But today we're all victims, unfortunately, of getting wrong news, misinformation, disinformation, things that we get lied to about. We don't always get the truth, whether it's about medicine or it's about politics. How many people are getting fed wrong news today in politics? We see what's going on in Israel, and you speak to people. And I lived in Israel. I've been to Israel. You've been to Israel. So you know what's going on. But there are people that have no idea where Israel is on a map. If you ask them to point it out, they have no idea. So all they're watching, all the information is from TikTok and fake news, things like that.
Oh yeah, by the way,
they're getting all the lies.
Would just like to take this moment real quick, even though it's a bit of a tangent, but this whole idea of fake news, something that I've seen that really is despicable in my eyes, and like this is literally coming from a government agency. Let's see if I can find it real quick before I bring it up. I hate talking about something if I don't have it right. Okay,
I was going to say, personally, I hate the idea of the term fake news. It's like it's all news. It's just some of it is propaganda. I like to use the term propaganda rather than fake news.
But yeah, so let's see. Where is it? Okay, so this is from Pantea Javidan, JD, PhD, Faculty and Research Fellow, Stanford Human Rights Center for Human Rights and International Justice, Stanford Human Rights and Trauma Mental Health Lab. Views are her own. Someone just shared with me that the CDC Gov hid this comment. When I attempt to view the original, Twitter claims that it was hidden by the post author. It was not, and wait. So she's saying that it... Wait. Okay, it's not clear at all which. Wait, I want to. Let's see. Let's see. Please note that it is clear whomever manages the CDC account hid the comment, and that Twitter X is correct, and it is hidden by the original poster CDC government. Okay, so this person didn't know originally what.
It sounds like the clarifications. Basically, you have moderators on the CDC site that do the same thing that so many moderators, on YouTube and Reddit and stuff do, where they groom the room. They censor any comments that are contrary to their propaganda. This is where the fake news comes. Fake news. It's like that they're presenting a narrative and propagandizing it, and they shut down anybody who's saying anything contrary.
Yeah. Here. The CDC hiding replies about masks and repeat infections, including their own sources, is one of the creepiest parts of the pandemic so far, which we're still in. Whatever guidance is happening in the background at CDC must be horrifyingly pro-death. So they're sharing, this is from February 1st, CDC. Your next COVID-19 infection could be your worst, so don't gamble with your health. Vaccination reduces risks and severity and keeps you protected. No mention of masks at all. No mention of staying away from high-risk areas. And then they wonder why people are so why they don't trust them. And that's also, without getting into it, because I personally don't have the same issues that you and some other people have with the vaccine. But the point being is that if the CDC wants people to get vaccinated, that probably isn't going to help. Because it's like that the CDC isn't warning people about the risks, and they won't. Anyway, but this was the other thing. I actually reposted this, but the CDC is hiding replies about wearing respirators and masks to prevent COVID and about long COVID. Why is a national public health agency hiding replies about wearing respirators to prevent infection from an airborne virus? Like, it's dystopian. Like,
Well, one of the things is the idea that the government is full disclosure and honest. I think that starting premise that they're going with is kind of flawed
yeah,
because
good point.
the government's inherently going to slant things again in its own nation's favor. That they're not going to try to reduce public panic. That there are lots of reasons why they're not giving full candor, and not all of those reasons are nefarious. Now, in this case, their messaging sounds pretty on point. Go out and buy those vaccines. And that could be very nefarious. I have to sit there and say I can't rule that out here, and it strongly stinks. Tag.
But yeah, I mean, what was that I was going to say? What was it I was? Oh, right.
Wrong news today in politics. You see what's going on in Israel, and you speak to people. And I lived in Israel. I've been to Israel. You've been to Israel, so you know what's going on. But there are people that have no idea where Israel is on a map. If you ask them to point it out, they have no idea. So all they're watching, all the information is from TikTok and fake news, things like that, run by the Chinese, and they're getting all the lies. They're getting all the lies. They don't know the truth. A guy like that is he's just a product of lies. He didn't get the real news. So Yitro got the real news because he's an important guy. He got the real access.
And I mean, without getting into this, because I do want to finish up, there is such a thing as fake news, and that's like, for instance, say there's a news story about something that doesn't even happen. I do think that would be fake news. That's different than, oh, this is my opinion and it differs from the mainstream. I think that even though that is something that's contentious, it is something that's very different from what fake news is literally, because, I mean,
The Onion kind of qualifies as fake news.
No, but it's satire, and they own it. But the other thing I was going to say is, yeah, I mean, if the government,
in a lot of people over the years too.
Yeah, but it's kind of like one of those things where, with that fake hitman website, if they're saying, if they make it clear it's a parody, but people end up sending their information saying, hey, I need your services, it's kind of like, well, you were begging to be caught, but also like you broke the law. And the fact that, wait, how was I connecting it to, I forget what I was saying. Anyway, but no, I mean, if the government didn't give a crap about AIDS until, it got to the point where, which the funny thing, well, it's not funny, it's horrible, but AIDS actually ended up being, in the grand scheme of things, people were afraid of getting sick. And so, it ended up that people were afraid of what they saw as the primary source of infection, which was, the community. But what, even though it spread plenty of other ways, but the point is, it was something that actually required, much more intimate contact than something like COVID does. But like, everyone's fine with COVID, and nobody, and again, I don't want to go into a whole discussion about it just because it's so far afield, but it just, if the government didn't give a crap about AIDS, the government doesn't, they do messaging, but they don't give a crap about, kids dying in school shootings. And again, it's not something like, regardless of how it would be addressed, it's something that no one actually is willing to address. It's just something that people use in order to get more votes. It's like, I don't know, call me cynical, but.
Well, wasn't it Hillary Clinton who said never let a good crisis go to waste?
She's not the only one who said that. I mean, it's something that's pretty universal among politicians.
Again, I still go back to, my father saying politicians are, they're dishonest whores.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a reason that both politician and pharaoh start with P.
Very well could be. I'm not the etymologist.
First words, Kohen Midian. Okay. What do you hear? What do you hear? He heard it. Kol asher asa Elohim leMoshe u'Yisrael amo. He heard everything that God did to Moshe and to the Jewish people. So here are two things, my friends. What God did to Moshe and what God did to the Jewish people. What is going on here? Gam ze yagid shebach ha'ish. This is also telling you the praise of Yitro. Sheishtadel adat kol pratei ha'ma'asim. He investigated to find out all the details. V'ze yagid ki ahav et Yaakov. That means that he loved the Jewish people. He wanted to hear every detail about how they got out. That shows love. Why? Because if someone hates someone, if you hate someone, you will be repulsed when you're told his praiseworthy deeds, right? If you're told about his good fortune. If there's someone you don't like, and they tell you, this guy made a lot of money in COVID. If you don't like him, you're not going to want to hear the details. You're going to change the conversation. You don't want to hear about your enemy's good fortune. So from the fact that Yitro says, really, tell me more, right? Tell me more, right? Like, what happened? Tell me. The fact that he wants to hear more means he's your friend. If you're interested in somebody, that means that you like them. If you don't want to hear more about their good fortune, that means you don't like them. Okay? I mean, if we love our spouse, we want to hear about the good things that happen in the day. Tell me more. Oh, beautiful. We don't say, oh, very nice, and then just end the conversation. Oh, yeah, okay, very nice, beautiful. Okay, good to hear. No, tell me more. That's what someone who loves someone wants to hear. Tell me more about your good day. Tell me more. And Yitro over here, he loves the Jewish people, and therefore he left everything to hear more. Tell me more about what happened. Okay. Look at this over here. We have to ask another question. The Pasuk tells us that he heard everything that God did. Now let me ask you, the listener, what does everything that God did include? What does it entail? What does it encompass? What does it include? What did everything he did? Right? If I just stopped here and I said, Yitro heard everything that God did for the Jewish people, what would that include? He heard about what did God do? Obviously, he heard about Yetziat Mitzrayim, right? So why does Pasuk have to go on and say that he took them out of Egypt? That's for sure. Already you told me that. So he explains as follows. Yitro knew how impossible it was to get out of Egypt. Our rabbis tell us, no one ever left Egypt. It was like Azkaban prison in Harry Potter. Okay? No one left. Once you were in, you never left Mitzrayim. You were there for life. No one left. Now, Yitro, not only that, but he was Paro. He was one of Paro's advisors.
Hotel California.
He knew everything about Egypt. He knew about the security. He knew how tight it was. You couldn't get out of there. He was professional. He was very knowledgeable. And therefore, it wouldn't help for him to hear that they left. So what if they left? He still wouldn't believe it. I don't believe it. Impossible. Therefore, it says, Vayishma Yitro et kol asher asa. Oh, so Pasuk says that Yitro heard everything that God did. What do you mean everything that God did? It means everything that he did through the prophet Moshe. That's right. The signs, the snake, and everything. And also the miracles that he did, whether it's B'diyat Mahazikbam, the Makot, the sea. So Yitro heard about the Exodus, but it wouldn't be enough to tell us that, because if I just told you Yitro heard about the Exodus, he wouldn't believe it. There's no way. Come on, he couldn't leave. So he first had to hear about Kol Asher Asa Hashem Moshe leIsrael, the Moshe. He had to hear about everything that God did through Moshe by the miracles that he did as a prophet to prove his prophecy. And also he heard about all the other miracles of the Makot and the splitting of the sea. And with those two combined, it confirmed that they left. Now he knew that they actually did leave. If he just heard that they left alone, he said it wouldn't have been enough. Because without the miracles, even if they left, first of all, lo yamin, he wouldn't believe it. And even if you believe it, lo yiftach, it's not going to stay, it's not going to last, right? They're going to chase them. And even if they chase them and it doesn't work the first time, they're going to chase them again. So what confirmed the fact that they for sure are free is the fact that he heard everything else that surrounded the Exodus. Exodus alone would not have been enough to convince Yitro to come and join the Jewish people. Okay, so the reason Yitro comes out and joins is because he was confident that the Exodus is absolute, and it's full freedom, full-fledged. Okay, and how do you know it's full-fledged? It's kol asher asa, everything else that was included in the Exodus. Wow, so that's beautiful stuff over here. Now some say, what else did he hear? He heard about Amalek. Besides the splitting the sea, he also heard about Amalek. And by the way, right before this pasuk of Vayishma Yitro, the last pasuk spoke about Amalek. That was the ending of last week's Parshah. So Vayishma now makes a lot of sense. So now, according to that opinion, even the miracles weren't enough to confirm the rumor that they left. Why? A person could say the reason God did these miracles is because Paro is such a wicked person. He's so disrespectful, this guy Paro. No respect. That's why God allowed this to happen.
Technically, God forced
God outright
by making Pharaoh's heart that way, but okay, so אתה ידעתי כי גדול אדוני מכל האלוהים, כי בדבר אשר זדו עליהם. ויקח יתרו חותן משה עולה, וזבחים לאלוהים ויבוא אהרון וכל זקני ישראל לכו לחם עם חותן משה לפני האלוהים. ויהי ממחרת וישב משה לשפוט את העם ויעמוד העם על משה מן הבוקר עד הערב. וירא חותן משה את כל אשר הוא עושה לעמיה ויאמר מה הדבר הזה אשר אתה עושה לעם? מדוע אתה יושב לבדך וכל העם ניצב עליך מן בוקר עד ערב? ויאמר משה לחותנו כי יבוא אלי העם לדרוש אלוהים כי יהיה להם דבר בא אלי ושפטתי בין איש ובין רעהו והודעתי את חוקי האלוהים ואת תורתיו. ויאמר חותן משה אליו לא טוב הדבר אשר אתה עושה, נבול תבול גם אתה גם העם הזה אשר עמך כי כבד ממך הדבר לא תוכל לעשות לבדך אתה שמע בקולי יעצך ויהי אלוהים עמך יהיה אתה לעם מול האלוהים והבאת אתה את הדברים אל האלוהים והזהרת אתם את החוקים ואת התורות והודעת להם את הדרך ילכו בה ואת המעשה אשר יעשו. And now I know that Adonai. So this was Yitro saying. So blessed be Adonai, Jethro said, who delivered you from the Egyptians and from Pharaoh, and who delivered the people from under the hand of the Egyptians. And now I know that Adonai is Gadol Mikol Elohim, is great amongst all the gods. So this is greater than all the gods, or the greatest of all the gods? Greatest from all the gods, because of the thing that Zadu, that this thing that he as their like presumption, as a result of their presumption. It's not really clear to me. Let's see, this says, by the result of their very schemes against the people. And Jethro, the father-in-law of Moshe, took and went up and took and went up with sacrifices for Elohim, and he brought, and Aaron brought, and Aaron and all the elders of Israel brought brought bread for food with to eat bread with the father-in-law of Moses before Elohim. So it's saying that so Jethro's bringing sacrifices, and Aaron and all the elders of Israel come to eat bread, to partake of the meal. So this seems like to be kind of an allusion to the Passover meal. Like they finally, yeah,
Definitely some sort of, sacrificial, ritual meal for certain.
yeah.
Yeah.
It might be like a Thanksgiving feast of sorts. Let's see. Yeah. So and they so they would eat the meal with him before God, but before the gods, or before God, depending on context. And so it was Mimacharat, the next day. Moses dwelled or sat Lishpot as judge over the nation, and he stood and while the people stood, the nation stood about Moses or around Moses from the morning until the evening. But when the father-in-law of Moses saw all that he had done for the people, he said, "What is What is this thing that you are doing for the people? Why do you stand levad, levadech, levad? Why do you stand alone? And all the nation is standing around you from morning until night." And Moses said to his father-in-law, because God, because to me came because the nation came to me to seek God. Okay, this is interesting. Because it was for them thing that came to me. And let's see. And so it will be for them that when a thing comes to them, or comes when a thing comes about, or when something occurs, they come to me, and I will judge between man and between his fellow, and they will know the law, or no, I will make known the laws. That's what it says. Because I'm trying to speed this along. I will make the laws known. I will make the laws of God known, and the laws of God known, and his teaching. It's just weird because I'm saying the laws of Elohim and his teaching, so it's like, but it is implying that Adonai know. So like you definitely see this part of that tradition where it's co-identifying the two, even though it's using different names as like, well, one appears only at a certain point. Oh shoot, I messed. All right. And the father-in-law of Moses said to him, "This is not good. This thing is not good, as you are saying. The thing you are doing is not right." Interesting. Now, Navol, you'll surely be foolish, or you'll certainly sink, languish, wither. You'll certainly fade, or you'll certainly wither. Um, um, and you and also you and also this people that are with you, because because too heavy for you is the thing that you cannot do, that you are not able that they're not able to do alone, or you cannot do it alone. Now listen to my voice, or listen in my voice. I will devise, or I will counsel you, and Elohim will be with you. And interesting, and Elohim will be with you. Heye ata, you will be for the people mul against, or you'll be for the people like against, or like in representation, before God, and you will bring their words to Elohim. Okay, so this is interesting. Is it just me, or it seems like Jethro is coaching him, right?
Yeah, no, it definitely seems like that when like he's training him in how to do it.
I'm like, no, so this is under here it translates it as "and God be with you," but I think it's saying, listen, and now listen in my voice, and I will counsel you, and Elohim will be with you. It seems to be connecting the two.
No, I agree.
We just have like one more thing left. So let me just get my throat break real quick.
For sure, God's going to do that. But God won't do that to another nation.
Oh, actually,
how do you know that the Jews are going to survive in the desert?
Read the comments.
Maybe when they get.
Let's see. Let's see. Where are we at? Closest parallel. Midianite tent shrine Timnah is one of the closest parallels to the biblical tabernacle. Kenites, Canaanites. Correspondence between the ruler of Kadesh and the pharaoh Akhenaten is preserved among the Amarna letters. Kadesh is known as Kidshu in these Akkadian language letters. How is it known to the Egyptians? Was it just Kadesh? Two Egyptian texts, one dated to the period of Amenhotep, 14th century BCE, the other to the age of Ramses II, 13th century BC, refers to I can't see the hieroglyphics, it's so small. Tishaswa Yahweh, i.e. the land of the Shasu or Yahweh, in which Yahweh, also rendered as Yahweh or Yahu, is a toponym, so a location name. Regarding the name Yahweh, Michael Astor observed that the hieroglyphic rendering corresponds very precisely to the Hebrew tetragrammaton Yod-Heh, or Yehovah, or Yod-Heh Vav-Heh, or Yahweh, and antedates the hitherto oldest occurrence. All right. The Moabite stele, I think that's what you mean by the Moabite stone, but over 500 years before the cult of Yahweh has reached Israel. Groups of Edomites and Midianites worship Yahweh as their God. Let's see. Where is it? Oh, yeah. Antique Song of Deborah in the Book of Judges. God is described as emerging from Seir to lead the Israelites in battle. Judges 5:4. Also from Paran. Let's see.
Get to another nation that's not as wicked as Egypt, God won't defend them. God won't back them. Therefore, when he heard about another nation, not only Paro, but even Amalek, that even there we defeated. So Yitro said, okay, so I really see now that God's behind these Jewish people. And when he heard all of that, he saw that Hashem loves us, and then he left everything and came to join us. Okay? Nothing, another idea is when it says that he took us out of Egypt. The reason it's telling us that he took us out of Egypt, going back to answer that question, if it tells me that he heard about everything, why does it also have to specify that he heard about our exodus from Egypt? That's included in everything. To tell me right after this, what does it say? It says that Yitro heard, and what did he do? He didn't just join the Jewish people. He brought Tzipporah and her two sons to join Moshe. What do you have to bring them for? Al derech omram, based on what our rabbis told us. Amar Yitro le Moshe, lama ata molich l'shtecha. Yitro, right before Moshe left, to go free the Jewish people. He started taking his wife and kids. And his father said, "Where are you going?" He said, "I told you. I asked you permission. I'm going to free the Jewish people." So Yitro said, "Okay, go alone. You want to take your wife and your kids back into the prison?" Amar lo, right? Atidin. Amar Yitro Moshe, lama atam moliach eshtecha. He said, "Why are you going to take your children to a place where people are slaves? They're trying to leave, and you're taking more in." It's a good argument. What did Moshe say back? Amar lo, Moshe said, "Atidin Israel gebel Torah al Har Sinai." Moshe said, "But the Jewish people are going to receive the Torah on Har Sinai. Velo yiyu b'nai bichlal. My children shouldn't be there on Har Sinai," which is an amazing thing to think about. Which Jews weren't present at Har Sinai? Every Jew was there. But actually, Tzipporah, Moshe's own wife, and his own 2 sons were not there. They were in Midian. And this is Moshe's concern. I got to take them because when we leave, they're going to receive the Torah. I want my kids to see that. I want my kids to be present at Har Sinai. Amar lo, lech shalom.
Or was Sinai in Midian? That seems to be the implication.
Yeah. Again, I shared with you, one of the routes there, and again, the difference between Mount Sinai and Mount Horeb, and which one they actually got the commandments at. That's an issue for future streams.
Yeah.
So Yitro said, "Okay, go in peace." And Or HaYim understands that to mean that Yitro promised him that he'll bring them. Yitro promised Moshe that he will bring his kids right after they leave. And therefore the pasuk says, "Vayishma." You know what Yitro heard? Ki hotzi. He heard that they're out. And now that they're free, he had to keep his promise. The Kayem Dvaro, he had to keep his promise. He brought the wife and the 2 sons to make sure that they are present at Har Sinai. This is all only if you say the opinion that they got there before Matan Torah. Believe it or not, there is an opinion that the Jewish people that Yitro brought his daughter and his 2 grandsons, he brought them only after Kabbalat Torah. According to that opinion, it's wild to think that Moshe's own 2 sons did not see the giving of the Torah. That is the second opinion. That's not the opinion Or HaYim goes with. Or HaYim is over here saying very clearly that Moshe stipulated, he made his father-in-law promise him that he'll bring him. And he'll bring them. But the other opinion is that no, they didn't bring them. He didn't bring them. The other opinion is that they didn't see the Torah giving, which is a wild thing to think about. The giver of the Torah, his own sons, didn't receive the Torah, which is the famous saying that the children of the shoemaker go barefoot. That sometimes it's the shoemaker's children get neglected. Yeah, we forget our own children. That's an unfortunate reality of life. Sometimes you could have a big rabbi who could be helping the whole world, and he's forgetting about his own children. That would be something very sad. But that's maybe what we see even by Moshe. Moshe was giving the Torah to the whole world, and his own sons weren't getting the Torah. They didn't get it. Again, that's the second opinion. Over here, the Or HaYim seems to be going with the first opinion, that Yitro came before the giving of the Torah, and Yitro, and that was something that Moshe was worried about. That Yitro had to reassure him. Yitro had to say, "Don't worry, I'll bring them. I promise, I'll bring them." And that's what the pasuk is saying. Pasuk is saying, "Vayishma Yitro." Yitro heard, "Kol asher asa lin Moshe." He heard everything that God did. That He took them out of Egypt. Now that they're out, my argument, says Yitro, my argument that we can't take the kids in because of slavery is now over. Now I have to stay true to my word, that I'm going to allow the kids to reunite with their father so that they can be present for Har Sinai. Anyways, there's a lot more to talk about, but these are just a couple of ideas of Or HaYim. Brilliant how he understands just pasuk 1, just the first pasuk. So much lessons for life. We'll stop over here, my friends. Have a wonderful day, and hopefully we'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Interesting. I still feel like he has a huge blind spot.
Yeah, well, we're both in agreement on that one. Jethro and the Midianites weren't quite as idolatrous, from everything my reading of it, as they want to portray.
Yeah, definitely.
Shalom. This week we are reading the Torah portion of Yitro, beginning in Exodus 18, reading about the father-in-law of Moshe, Yitro. He was the Kohen of Midian. He was the high priest of Midian. And this is the Torah portion in which we find the Sinai revelation, the giving of the Torah, the 10 Commandments, and perhaps it could be said it's one of the most central Torah portions in that it contains this important event. And it's named after Yitro, who was, in fact, a high priest of idolatry, Kohen Midian, the high priest of Midian. That is, until he heard about the great miracles that Hashem performed for the children of Israel, and he decided, in fact, to embrace the Torah and the God of Israel. How interesting, how unusual that the Torah portion, which features what can certainly be called to be one of the most important events in history, and in fact, the embodiment of the Torah itself, the 10 Commandments, the Sinai revelation, this Torah portion is named after a heathen idolater who, in fact, became a great devotee of Torah and the God of Israel. You know, Yitro heard about the great things that Hashem did for the Jewish people. He heard about the manifestations of God's sovereignty. And what he heard, Rashi tells us, the splitting of the sea, the war with Amalek, these things made such an impression on his soul that he decided to give up his entire idolatrous career. And in fact, he decided to devote himself to the reality of the one true living God, the God of Israel. And we are told in Exodus 18, we are told that
That's where
Yitro
they're
said,
getting it from,
"Blessed
Ariel.
is
They're getting
Hashem,
it from
who saved
Rashi.
you from the hand of Egypt and from the hand of Paro, and who delivered the people from
Interesting.
the burdens of Egypt." And then he says in verse 11, "Now I know that Hashem is greater than all other gods." And the Holy Zohar tells us that when Yitro uttered these words, "Now I know that Hashem is greater than any other gods," this was the greatest moment of the sanctification of Hashem's name in history. It was such a powerful moment when Yitro, of all people, said, "Now I know that Hashem is greater than any other gods." And why is that moment so significant? Because he should know. He was an expert in all sorts of idolatry and cults. He was the high priest of Midian. But when he investigated with sincerity and with a seeking heart, he discovered that he had been wrong his entire life. And that moment, someone who's far away comes and recognizes the sovereignty of Hashem and accepts it. That's the greatest sanctification. It's not such a difficult thing for someone who spent his entire life in yeshiva, someone who's been learning Torah, someone who maybe was brought up that way. It's not such an accomplishment for that person to believe in God. But belief in God and attachment to God is not supposed to be some sort of club only for special people that were raised that way or people in the know. The goal of Torah is for the entire world to be illuminated and to be united together in the recognition of Hashem. Look at the prayers on Rosh Hashanah, prayers that are very universal. We don't ask on Rosh Hashanah on the New Year, don't ask for anything for Israel. We ask that the whole world be united in understanding and recognition of who Hashem is. And look how important this concept is, that the heart, as it were, of the whole Torah, the portion in which we find the Sinai revelation and the giving of the Ten Commandments, is named after Yitro. The portion is not named Moshe, it's named Yitro. With all his sordid past, he became a great follower of Hashem. And so imagine this. In every family, you know, people love the nostalgia of bygone generations, and people sit around and take out old and faded photographs of grandfathers and great-grandfathers, and the children never met these people, and the fathers and the sons tell over to the next generation, this was your grandfather, this was your great-grandfather. Prestigious and illustrious lines of family. Family, it's very important. So, the grandchildren of Moshe Rabbeinu, the grandchildren of the great Moses, the deliverer of Israel from Egypt, the lawgiver, really the savior of Israel who took us out of Egypt. His grandchildren are sitting around the table and looking at photographs of their Zayda, their great-grandfather. And who is it? Yitro. And there's no shame there, even though he was an idolatrous priest. There's the greatest sanctification. Yitro, sitting around the table and looking at photographs of their Zayda, their great-grandfather. And who is it? Yitro. And there's no shame there, even though he was an idolatrous priest. Because the greatest sanctification of Hashem's name is when someone like that, who should know and who's experienced in the world and in all of the lies and falsehoods and all of the deviant practices and all the different things that people can get involved with in this confusing world, when someone like that comes and realizes that there's really only one God, that's exactly what makes Hashem happy and satisfied, and that's exactly the greatest moment of sanctification.
Interesting. So at least we got some context. So it seems like Rashi interpreted this, but it doesn't actually explicitly. I wonder if he would have said the same thing if he would have known what we know now about the Shasu and the Midianites.
Yeah,
Probably
I
not.
don't know. I don't know. That the part of it is that whole the story. It makes for such a good story about the celebrating the lost sheep conversion. Again, it's
I don't
one
know.
of
I
those.
think it makes a better story this way.
Well, I like that story better, but I'm just saying it's from a rabbinical teaching sort of thing. It's sort of almost a Jewish version of the prodigal son, where you're
Yeah.
celebrating the return to the transition from unholiness to holiness. And you don't have that if he was the one who taught Moses how to be holy in the first place. Again, it's a totally different narrative. Hey,
Yeah. Oh, interesting. I guess we missed one. Okay. He's Harta. And something about stranger. No, and Zahar and admonish, warn, enjoin, send out, be shining, to join, be mindful of, join upon. Oh, and like admonish or like teach, send out to teach to them, um, the chukim, the laws, and the Torah, and the Torahs, the teachings, the laws and the teachings. So Torah literally is teaching. Instructions, the Hodata, and they will know, or would that be and you will know? And you will make known to them the Haderach Yelchuba, the path that they are to walk on. So it's interesting. Here, make known to them the way they are to go. This derech, another word for derech is halacha, and another word for, like, basically yelchu is from yalach, which is from the same root as halach, which is basically lach. Same root as malach, which is messenger. It means to go. Could be to go for someone, but in this case it's to go. Halach is to walk. And what's interesting is derech is a path. A path is what is walked on, but a halacha is also a path. So, and halacha is Jewish law, or like Jewish tradition, rather. So, its idea of following Jewish tradition is following the way. And so there's also this idea of if you grew up traditional, but then you stop being traditional, you're called off the derech, or like you're off the path. It's kind of funny. It's like you've driven off the road. You're driving off road.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So let's see, the derech, the path that they're to go on, and the actions that they are to do, the practices they are to follow, but literally to follow. To do, not to follow. Okay. Ve'ata techeze. Wait, there he is. Wait. Actually, let's see. Ve'hisartem etchem et chukim ve'et hatorot ve'ha'odata lahem et haderech ילכו בה ואת המעשה אשר יעשו. Right. Just in case I forgot that. ואתה תחזה מכל האנשי חיל, יראי אלוהים אנשי אמת, שונא בצבא שמת עליהם שרי אלפים, שרי מאות, שרי 50 ושרי 10 וסחפתו את העם וכל עת והיה כל הדבר הגדול יביאו אליך וכל הדבר הקטון ישפטו הם והקל מעליך ונעשהו איתך ואם את הדבר הזה תעשה וציוך אלוהים ויחלט עמוד וגם כל העם הזה על מקומו יבוא בה ושלום. וישמע משה לכל חותנו ויעש כל אשר אמר ויבחר משה אנשי חיל אנשי ישראל ויתן אותם ראשים על העם שרי אלפים שרי מאות, שרי 50 ושרי 10, ושפטו את העם בכל עת את הדבר הקשה. יביאון אל משה בכל הדבר הקטון ישפטו הם. וישלח משה את חותנו וילך לו אל הצור. Here, I'll just all right, let's see. And now Techeze, Vata Techeze, and now you'll, was it Chaza is to seek out, I think. Techezi. Oh, Techezi comes from Vata Techeze. Techeze. And you will search out from all the people on Shechayil, men, like men of valor, capable of individuals, men of valor, men of strength, might, efficiency, wealth, army, men of strength, basically men of capability, Yireh, who fear Elohim, Anshe Emet, men, true men, or trustworthy men, that hate Batzah, that hate injustice, or that hate an ill-gotten gain, and who set upon them princes and chiefs as rulers. Hundreds of alafim is 1,000. Thousands of thousands of rulers, hundreds of rulers, 50s of rulers, and tens of rulers, and judge and you'll judge the people and all throughout all time, or at all times, and it'll be that all the great things that come to you, all the great like disputes that are brought to you, and all the things that are small, you're to judge them, and to in order to be I don't even know what I was trying to say. Be swift from upon them, or from about them, and lift them up, or you'll judge them. Every big thing, every small thing, that's brought to you, you'll judge them, and you'll be quick about it, for them. You'll lift them up, or you'll lift up the burden, your burden. Okay, that's what I was missing. If this thing you do, if you do this, and you are in command, or you're capable, Elohim, and so you're commanded by Elohim, and you go to and you let's see, and you will go and you'll stand, and also all the people, uh, all these people, all these people around the place will come in peace. And Moses heard or listened to his voice of his father-in-law, and did all that he had said. And Moses chose men of capability, men of strength from all of Israel, um, um, and and gave um, and gave to them as heads over the people, ruler, thousands of rulers, hundreds of rulers, 50s of rulers, and tens of rulers. And he judged and the nation, and they judged the nations at in all one moment. The thing, or the matter, Akasha, the hard matter, Yavion, would arrive for Moshe and all Hadvar, not all. Let's see if it's all Hadvar, and all the things, all the little thing that judged them, all the matters they would decide for themselves. I'm not sure. Vayishlach Moshe et Chotno, and Moses sent his father-in-law, or sent his father-in-law off, or was sent off by his father-in-law, and he went with him to, I'm guessing with a camel probably, to the land. Give me a moment. We just have like a few more. So, any thoughts on this so far?
Nothing that we haven't been talking about already.
Yeah.
But, it sounds like Jethro's giving the instructions and Moses is following him. Like,
Yeah, it's definitely what I'm getting from it as well. Hey, what's this? Chaim Martyr.
Good morning. We continue with a 3-minute daily dose of Torah. Yesterday, we were focusing in on the fact that the Torah tells us a few times over that Yitro Chotein Moshe has come, and we understand the point of that story, that he hears what happens and he brings the family back together with Moshe. That makes sense. That's the story that we have in front of us. But there's another story that we have in front of us, and I think it's implicit in the question that the Midrash asks, which is, Vayishma Yitro, the Torah says, Vayishma Yitro, Yitro heard, Ma Shmua Shama Uva. What piece of information did Yitro hear that caused him to come? And you'll say, what do you mean? The Torah says, Kihotzi. I mean, he heard everything that God had done for the people. Kihotzi Hashem and Israel, and more specifically, that God had brought Israel out of Egypt. So that's what he heard. Why ask any other question? And the answer seems to lie in the second story that we have here. There are two stories happening at once. Story number one is the family man bringing, father-in-law bringing his daughter back to his son-in-law. Story number two is the story of the Kohen Midian, the priest of Midian, who comes to Moshe and here sings God's praises and then offers sacrifices to God at this moment. What is that about? Says one version of the Midrash that simply doesn't ask Ma Shmua Shama Uva, but more specifically, Ma Shmua Shama Uva ve'nitgayer. What is it that he heard that caused him to come and choose to become a convert? Wow, that is a very different version of a story. And here you have that example then of the Torah, in effect, telling you two stories at once, two stories involving the same person. I come as the father-in-law of Moshe for the family purposes. I also come as the Kohen Midian, who's in seeking and searching. There is an interesting midrash, excuse me, is troubled by the fact that Moshe finds, when Moshe first meets the daughters of Yitro, the daughters of the Kohen Midian, right? He sees that they're being abused by the shepherds at the well, and Moshe steps in and basically protects them and takes care of them. They're being abused by him. What do you mean? How can they be abused by him? He's after all, he's the community rabbi. Who picks on the community rabbi's children? That's a terrible thing to do. And the assertion there is that he had already withdrawn himself from his role of being the Kohen Midian. He had chosen out of this idolatrous practice, and so you had, and therefore he was kind of, after all, he's the community rabbi. Who picks on the community rabbi's children? That's a terrible thing to do. And the assertion there is that he had already withdrawn himself from his role of being the Kohen Midian. He had chosen out of this idolatrous practice. And so you had, and therefore he was kind of open season, his family, for the abuses of the rest of the people who were disappointed and angry at him for turning against them and their faith. But here then you have is a story of a man who's searching and seeking. And when he hears all that God has done, wants to be part of it. That's version number 2. Tomorrow we'll conclude this discussion with some of the interesting answers offered as to what it was indeed that Yitro heard that made him come. Have a great day.
Good evening and welcome to New Ostrog, the monastery, the Canadian Orthodox monastery. And we continue our the Old Testament is about you. I think we need to pause for another little history lesson, because sometimes I get questions about these incidents and how they fit together. So I'm going to pause for a few moments in the flow of the narrative and talk a little more about the experience of Moses. We discussed why Moses had fled from Egypt, and also discussed something of his self-discovery in the Sinai wilderness. But there are some very important points that also need to be pointed out. Surely it was by God's will that Moses found his way to the area where the Midianites, under tribal leader Jethro, were feeding their flocks, and found his way to the well where Jethro's daughters would come to water their flocks and take water home. If you remember the story, Moses was there nearby, and the daughters of Jethro, the 7 daughters of Jethro, had come to get water for the flocks. And some of the shepherds, perhaps another tribe or another branch of the tribe, the male shepherds, had come and were harassing the girls and bothering them. And Moses came out from the place where he was resting and started probably shouting and screaming at them, and they thought he was a madman or something and fled. In any case, he saved the girls, and then they took him into the camp of Jethro. Now, the important thing for us to know is that the Midianites were descendants of Abraham through his second wife, Keturah, and that living in their nomadic isolation in the Sinai wilderness, they were in a good position to maintain the traditions that had come down to them from Moses. So they would have received some knowledge of the covenant. They would have also received an understanding of God. And Jethro, then, as the tribal leader, would have been also served as a priest and made the offerings to God in the wilderness. This is very significant for us to know, because it is here, in the time that he married the eldest daughter of Jethro, Zipporah, that Moses would have learned all those traditions that came down from Abraham. And even the stories that Abraham had told when he came from Chaldea. So some of the stories would have taken Moses all the way back through Haran and back to Ur of the Chaldees. And so these stories, which Moses received by tradition, would form the basis of the later book, which we call Genesis. And this is important for us to remember, that Moses spent something like 40, 50, 60 years among the Midians. And he learned and absorbed all these stories and traditions that would later be recorded by him, likely by him or by scribes traveling with him. And that it took all of this time for Moses to fully, first of all, find out who he was as an Israelite from the cousins of the Israelites, the Midians, and to hear about the covenant, about the promised land, and all these other things, so that he could know precisely what it was he was supposed to do with Israel when he led them out of bondage. Where were they to go? Why were they to go there? What connection did they have with that land? What connection did that have with the God who would shortly reveal himself to Moses? And this connection of the Midianites and Jethro with Abraham, very important to us in filling in this whole story, this whole picture. And of course, Moses might have received some other tradition still in Egypt, but remember, he was not raised with his own people. He was raised as a prince of Egypt, and he would have been far more steeped in the Egyptian folklore, Egyptian religion, Egyptian worship. And now he had to be prepared to have all of that wiped away and replaced with the revelation that had come through Abraham and his descendants. And the Midianites were in the best position to provide that, but largely because of their isolation, because they were cut off from the Egyptian world, and because they were rather free, roaming around from one place to another, and maintaining in a very simple pastoral way the same lifestyle of Abraham. So this is how Moses was formed and shaped for the new calling that God would give him. And doubtless, Jethro helped to explain to him who it was who spoke to Moses through the unburning fiery bush. Remember that finally on Sinai, God identifies himself to Moses, Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh. I am the one who exists, the being, the existence. So many ways we try to translate that. But if we go back to the time of Abraham and Isaac, we simply find that God was known as the living one who sees me. So here Moses was seen by the living one who identifies himself as the one who is, the living one, really. Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh. And this, as we often translate it, I am that I am. So this is the story of how Moses is prepared, how he has the knowledge and understanding of the traditions of Abraham and of the promised land and of the covenant between Israel and God, so that when he goes back to Egypt and expresses these things, the Israelites would recognize many of these stories as having been handed down to them from generation to generation, and be a little easier for Moses to convince them to return with him back to the promised land. That in itself was no easy task. It was not simply convincing Pharaoh to let them go. It was convincing them to actually go. And this is the story that we take up a little later. But we wanted to establish this historical framework so that the connections and the understanding of the story can be more complete. And so we can understand why Jethro might be referred to as a priest of the Most High God, because, of course, following the traditions of Abraham and the revelation to Abraham, and keeping those traditions, that worship, that understanding of God, which Abraham had passed on to his sons. So Moses is being reformed, formed first in the nobility of Egypt and the traditions and customs and understandings of the Egyptians, now to be reformed again at the hands, through the voice of direct descendants of Abraham. So I think we have a much better picture now of the story, as when we find that Moses would have gone back to Egypt in the time of the reign of Thutmose. And in the summertime, Thutmose would have been near Avaris. There was a royal palace on one of the islands in the delta, near that area which the scripture calls Goshen, and would have been in the region of Avaris, which was the center of the Hebrew existence in Egypt. The Egyptians by this time were really dependent upon their bonded servants and slaves. They had given so much, like Rome would later, the Egyptians had really become dependent on the slaves to maintain the infrastructure of the country and to do much of the agricultural work. So the slaves were a very important part of the Egyptian system. And it was not going to be at all easy for Moses to convince Pharaoh to let these people go, since the Egyptians were heavily dependent upon them. And now we have a better context, a better framework, a better understanding for continuing this story.
Interesting. So this guy, it's funny. The Orthodox priest knows what he's talking about a bit more than that previous guy.
Yeah, no, again, that was much more of my understanding of it.
In
Is
biblical
Jethro
studies, the origins
wasn't
of
the
Yahweh have two
pagan.
primary schools of thought. The first is as the Hebrew Bible, or the Old Testament, describes, with some caveats. Yahweh was among the deities of the Canaanite pantheon, who, as the Israelites took on a distinctive identity, separate from their Canaanite brethren, eventually adopted Yahweh as their chief god. Another school asserts that Yahweh has no connection whatsoever to the Canaanite pantheon, and that Yahweh's origins lay south of the Levant and in the Arabian Peninsula, among the nomadic warrior tribes of the Kenites and Midianites. This is called the Kenite-Midianite hypothesis. Friedrich Wilhelm Galeni, a German Lutheran theologian and Bible scholar of the 19th century, first proposed the hypothesis by maintaining that Yahweh's origins lay outside the lands of Canaan. Subsequent generations of biblical scholars, with new archaeological and textual evidence open to them, began to flesh out the idea. By the mid-20th century, the Kenite-Midianite hypothesis became widely accepted in German higher criticism, as well as among various American and English biblical scholars. The basic idea, Kenite-Midianite hypothesis, became widely accepted in German higher criticism, as well as among various hypotheses out the idea. By the mid-20th century, the Kenite-Midianite hypothesis became widely accepted in German higher criticism, as well as among various.
Oh, that's funny. German
scholars.
higher criticism. I thought he was saying the German higher criticism. I'm like, seems a bit contemporaneous.
Became widely accepted in German higher criticism, as well as among various American and English biblical scholars. The basic idea runs through a reading of the Old Testament narrative, a recomposition of the Yahwist narrative, understanding that the Yahweh who is appearing in Genesis 2 and 3 is actually later than the Yahweh that we discover in the Exodus narrative, and other Levantine and Egyptian archaeological and linguistic arguments. In the biblical narrative, the Old Testament God is generally referred to as El or Yahweh, which gives us the textual traditions of the Elohist, writings that use the term El or Elohim and its many variations, and the Yahwist source material, writings that use the term Yahweh and its various named variations.
All right. So we've just got 6 more lines. All right. בחודש השלישי לצאת בני ישראל מארץ מצרים, ביום הזה באו מדבר סיני, וייסע מרפידים, ויבואו מדבר סיני, ויחנו במדבר, ויחן שם ישראל נגד ההר, ומשה עלה אל האלוהים, ויקרא אליו אדוני מן ההר לאמור, כה תאמר לבית יעקב ותגיד ולבני ישראל, אתם ראיתם אשר עשיתי למצרים, ושא אתכם על כנפי נשרים, ואביא אתכם אלי, ואתם שמוע תשמעו בקולי, והושמעתם את בריתי, והייתם לי סגולה מכל העמים, כי לי כל הארץ, ואתם תהיו לי ממלכת כהנים וגוי קדוש אלה הדברים אשר תדבר אשר תדבר אל בני Israel. Right. And in the third month, for going out, on the third moon, I don't know what it's saying after, but on the third month, the children of Israel going out from Egypt, from the land of Egypt, on that day, Ba'u come to, or enter into, or they came to Midbar Sinai, to the wilderness of Sinai. Vayisu meRefidim, and traveling from Refidim, they came to the desert of Sinai, or wilderness of Sinai, and they Yachanu, and they camped there. Yeah, they encamped in the wilderness, and Vaichan, and they encamped there. Israel against the mountain, or like across from the mountain, in front of the mountain. Moshe and Moses went up to Elohim. Vaikra elav Adonai min hahar le'amor. So it's interesting. So it's saying, and Moshe went up to Elohim, who cried out, or called out to him, who cried, went up to God, Adonai. So it's interesting here. It's saying went up to Elohim. That says Adonai, who called out to him from the mountain, saying, "Thus you shall say to the house of Jacob, and you shall tell to the children of Israel." So interesting. This is actually where the Hasidic Rebbe the seventh Rebbe got the idea that. Well, actually, no. So this is part of the reason why he made sure to prioritize, not like at the expense, but just to like equalize the representation of Hasidic men and women and boys and girls, so that like it wasn't just only men that were like on the covers of like books and stuff like that. I mean, usually like kids' books and like about like focusing on women's education as well. What's interesting is that the idea that the Torah was first taught to the women before the men has to do with this idea of Beit Yaakov, and told to the children of Israel. B'nai is sons, and Beit is house, but Beit is also very close to Bat, which is daughters. So there's this tradition that Beit is the house and B'nai is the sons. I mean, Beit is the daughters and B'nai is the sons, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I follow what you're saying.
And it's kind of interesting because it goes in with this idea of like that's maybe more intuitive to them, and so that's why it's not like it's taught to them in a way that they don't need to learn it as much. But not that it means that they're better, just that it's more intuitive.
Right. Again, that intuitive sense is circling back to earlier conversation, that spirit of the law concept. What's written is the letter of the law. Tag.
So this says, and Moses has ascended. He ascended the mountain on the second day of the month, Ayat Tuesday. He had not done so spontaneously, but in response to an invitation by God, who had called out to him from the mountain to address the whole nation. Thus you shall say to the house of Jacob. Some commentators believe that Moses did ascend the mountain without having asked for permission in order to inquire how precisely to serve God there. He did so as a God. Interesting. and explain in detail the children of Israel according to Rashi's reason for the apparent repetition. The first part of the verse is addressed to the women, who will be told in a brief outline, whereas the second part is addressed to the men in far greater detail, emphasizing reward and punishment for observance. Oh, I was right. Or non-observance of the Torah commandments. He derives the word v'tagid, which is uncharacteristically spelled with a letter in the middle, as derived from the word gid, meaning a tough sinew, as a hint that some of the commandments will be found to be present a real challenge for those willing to observe them, according to the plain meaning of the text. However, the words v'tagid le'bnei Israel refer to the verse 4, where God tells Moses, "Atam ra'itam," you have seen. The reason why this is a preferable version is that it's the homiletic explanations never speak in terms of the future, but always in terms of the past. Here, God instructs Moses concerning what he is to do in the future, where he addresses the people. All right, I'm just going to not look for any more views. All right, let's see. All right. And you and you see, or you have seen that which I have done to the Egyptians, and I have lifted you all upon the wings of eagles, and I have brought you all to me on the wings of an eagle. I'm joking. So this is interesting. A commentary on this I can find without spending a lot of time.
I was going to say, it sounds like Tolkien appropriated that Wings of the Eagle thing.
Yeah, Bechor, sure. So that's the firstborn bull. I carried you all on the wings of eagles. As I said, I raised you to the highest heights and to the greatest greatness. That I took you out from the work of slaves, and I brought you to be with me to servants, that I may be the king of all kings. And how high is the greatest that it can be for you all, that it is as if I carried you and lifted you all high on the wings of eagles that bloom above all other birds. And it might be said on the wings of eagles that the eagle carries its chick upon its wings, and they will not see anything, not from the outside or from below, and not from flying from above, in order that he lifts the bird above the rest of the birds. And thus the Holy One made for Israel a pillar of fire before them, and a cloud after them, and a wall of water to the left and to the right, that they would not see anything because of the narrowness of the Mighty One. Almost this idea of they will not see anything, not from the outside or from below, or flying from above, in order. That sounds like an airplane.
No, it does.
This is interesting. I'm going to take a note of this, and we're almost done. But yeah, this is from Bechor Shore. I wonder how they got this interpretation. Or not interpretation, but that, let's see, is there anything else I can find real quick? Wait, there is something short here I saw. Over the sea like a bird that carries its young across a river by means of flying across it. It's interesting. I've carried you on eagle's wings. Rashi comments on this that refers to on the day which people come to Ramses. If you were to counter that in chapter 1237, this magic carpet referred to the day God transported the people from Ramses to Sukkot, we must answer that God referred to both these days according to Rashi. Let's see, anything else? Yeah, that's good. I'm not going to look more into it. Just trying to save time. And now if you listen to my voice, now if you certainly listen in my voice, and you guard or you keep my covenant, then you will be for me a sugula, like a charm, a possession, a prized possession. You'll be like a prized possession. Mikol Hamim, from amongst all the nations. Kili, because to me, Kol Hamim, that are all the nations that are mine in all the lands. Here it says, indeed, all the earth is mine, but it's notice this, among all the nations that are mine. This isn't saying all the nations, this is saying all the nations that belong to me, all the nations that are my possessions. You will be the most prized of all my possessions. But this isn't implying all the world, only this translation is. Mikol ha'amim, from among the nation, from all the nations, kili, that are mine. Isn't that interesting?
No, definitely.
And then it just says kili. Oh no, but it said no. Then it no. Actually, I'm misreading it. It's kili kol haaretz because the whole world is mine. But it could also be mikol ha'amim kili. Like in amongst all the nations that are mine, and in all or like without having to say and, but like all the land. I mean, it's possible. It's I know I'm not going to find any tradition on that here because of the fact that they're not going to read it as he only but I feel like you could look at this as like preserving an older tradition, but again, it's very spurious. Holy crap, 159 commentary on this. Let's see if I can find just a little something. More treasured than the other nations, saying that the entire earth belongs to me. I'm able to raise your stature above that than other nations. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Of course, some people are going to interpret a word. Treasure, the word segula. Treasure means something precious, lovely, and unique. Blah, blah, blah. I gotta look it up later. Well, I mean, we'll basically be starting right off here, so we could just look it up next time. Vatem tiyuli, and you will be for me. Vatem tiyuli mamlechet kohanim vegoy kadosh lehadvarim asher. Yeah, I did read it before. So and you will be for me a mamlechet kohanim, a nation of or like a kingdom, a kingdom of priests and a nation, a holy nation. Ele hadvari. Again, holy just means it's interesting because it means sacred, holy, but literally set apart. So it's not necessarily this idea of like holy means better than. You need to get that out of your minds if this is what you think holy means. Because at the same time, holy man would mean that that man is better than you, right? Like, does that mean a priest is better than someone because they're a holy man? Or what about a rabbi? No, that's not like, imagine if someone thinks that way, they're never going to understand the world. Holy, I mean, actually, I don't know where holy, like the Indo-European comes from, but I know that the Kadesh root does come from this idea of set apart, that there's something special about them because they're different, not necessarily that they're better.
I don't know if you've watched people out there in practice, but there are a lot of people who tend to think that the priest and the holy man is better than they are. And unfortunately, there are a lot of those priests and holy man who actually think they're better than the general people. Tag.
Hey, don't get lost in the sauce, but if you are going to get lost in the sauce, just make sure it's not the Kool-Aid.
Definitely.
Anyway, Vayavo Moshe. No. And so, so, and you'll be a holy nation. These are the words that that you are to speak to the children of Israel. And so that concludes the fourth part of 7. Interestingly enough, it was ended up being 6 plus 27, so that would be 33. That's not bad. 33, and then we got just over halfway done, at least by chapter wise. So that takes some pressure off, which is nice. And it's not terribly. I mean, it's 7 for me, which isn't great. Not terribly great, but links tend to vanish from comments. If you have any comments, links, just message it to me. You have my info. Zero. But so you said, wait here. The age of face Halfar when they established the 10th shrine at Timnah. Mitra Itra. I don't know where you're getting at. Standing stones. Links posted. Oh yeah, I already read that. Emailed Wikipedia. Oh yeah, cool. Midian religion for the tent, tabernacle, shrine, repurposed Hatorium. I like Hatorium. That's a cool word. Yithraic. Do you mean Mithraic monism? I feel like I'm missing something. Monolatry Moshe example of Yethro. Sorry. Moshe example of Itra Roel Samito Arianosophy. I have no clue where you're going, dude. Honestly, you lost me. But you could tell me about it another time. So I am going to just take one up. And in the meantime, we're just going to finish this one video because I want to hear more about the Canaanite Midianite hypothesis. I was making fun of myself there.
In the Torah, while Yahweh is one of the names encountered in Genesis as mentioned,
The video's muted, Ariel. It's not showing, not playing.
Oh, dang it. I was muted. Sorry. I was just going to finish this up real quick so I don't forget later. Also, just for context, I'm reading the Hebrew. I'm just highlighting the English so people can see. So, actually, it's too difficult. I can't focus on both at the same time, so I'm not going to highlight. Because it's acting weird. But, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה. And
in the Israelite narrative history, the introduction of Yahweh isn't until Exodus, when Moses flees to the Midianites, having killed an Egyptian, and takes refuge among them. Through the meeting with Jethro, the burning bush, and Joshua's declaration of the great works of God, of Yahweh, the hypothesis asserts that these events represent the earliest inclusion of Yahweh to the Israelites. The Genesis 2-3 narrative, dealing with Eden, Adam, and Eve, then are actually part of a nomadic Midianite mythology, and we'll talk about that in a bit. Rather than see Jethro converted to Yahweh, the Kenite Midianite hypothesis asserts that Jethro was always a patron of the Midianite deity, and he reaffirms his fidelity to Yahweh in this episode in Exodus. Moses then is introduced to Yahweh through his seeking refuge with the Midianites, becomes converted to Yahweh among the Midianites, and returns to the enslaved Israelites in Egypt as a representative of Yahweh. Furthermore, in the biblical narrative that we have, Yahweh declares that the God known to the Israelite patriarchs was El Shaddai. This, for the proponents of the Kenite Midianite hypothesis, not to mention the Elohist source material is what one finds in the Genesis patriarchal narratives, is also a dead giveaway. Before the burning bush and Moses among the Midianites, God's name was known to the Israelites and the patriarchs as El, a Canaanite deity. But now, with Moses among the Midianites, a new God appears, and his name is revealed, and it is Yahweh. Additional biblical texts are used to reaffirm this narrative. Deuteronomy 33:2, Judges 5:4, Habakkuk 3:3 and 3:7, and Isaiah 63:1 all mention the origins of Yahweh as coming south of the Levant. Reading back into Genesis, the Yahweh source is actually therefore a textual redaction among the Josian editors, who sought to include an origin story. The Adam-Eve Eden narrative is then a Midianite. The Yahweh source is actually therefore a textual redaction among the Josian editors. Genesis, the Yahweh source, is actually therefore a textual redaction among the Josian editors, who sought to include an origin story. The Adam-Eve Eden narrative is then a Midianite origin myth of how they became and are still wandering nomads. Remember, at the end of the Eden story, Adam and Eve are expelled to wander the earth, just as the Midianites are nomadic wanderers who cannot enter a permanent garden oasis. We will look in fuller detail about how to understand the Eden narrative in Genesis 2 and 3 from the perspective of the Kenite-Midianite hypothesis in another lecture. To summarize the Kenite-Midianite hypothesis, then, the main textual variants of God in the Old Testament represent different origins from different people groups who came to form the eventual Israelite, Judahite tribes that give us the Hebrew Bible or the Old Testament. Because we have two different name traditions, the Elohist and the Yahwist, these represent different deity traditions among the biblical authors and editors and people groups that came together to form the basis and provide the stories for the Old Testament. The Kenite-Midianite hypothesis argues that Yahweh was a distinct deity, separate from the Canaanite pantheon, as evidenced by the Yahweh source in Exodus, seen through the revelation of God's name to Moses after he flees the Midianites. This represents, in the Israelite historical narrative, the first contact with Yahwism, and Moses becomes the prophetic disciple of Yahweh, thus incorporating the Midianite deity into the Israelite narrative tradition. Again, as Moses encounters Yahweh, Yahweh tells him that prior to this revelation, this theophany, the patriarchs, the fathers of Moses and the Israelites, knew him as El Shaddai, a different textual variant. That Yahweh is a deity of Midianite origins also seems to be verified by other Old Testament writings, which acknowledge Yahweh as having come from the lands south of the Levant, south of the Promised Land, among the area where the Midianites and Kenites were. The inclusion of the Kenites as part of the conquest force in Joshua also brings Yahweh as a war god into the picture. For archaeological and linguistic reasons, affirmed both within the biblical text and extra-biblical source material, Yahweh was originally a god who was a deity among the Kenites and Midianites south of the Levant that got incorporated into the Israelite memory and oral traditions, then, through being a war god important to the war chiefs who united Israel, emerged as the chief deity of Israel, Judah. And in our next lecture, looking at the origins and triumph of Yahweh, we will turn to the notion of Yahweh as a war god.
Interesting. I'm definitely going to subscribe to that channel.
Yeah, no, that's I pretty much that's a fairly convincing hypothesis. It's my leading one right now. I tend to trace it back a little further than the Midianites and the Kenites. I go back probably another 1,000 years, but we can discuss that at another time.
Well, just give me a bit of context. What do you mean another 1,000 years?
Oh, I trace it back to Sumer.
Oh, you mean like Ea?
Like I said, we'll discuss it outside. It's one of my more speculative ones that I haven't really floated much. So,
all right. Anyway, on that note, yeah, no new comments. So, on that note,
want to tell the Rebbe the words of the new song that we're singing with Mashiach, right? So I'm just going to read him. Am Yisrael, have no fear. Mashiach will be here this year. We want Mashiach now. We don't want to wait. Okay?